Good morning. This is the JP Dinnell podcast, episode 79. I am JP Dinnell, and as always, I have Lucas with me. You cannot teach heart. You cannot teach heart is something I have heard most of my life growing up in sports. My parents instilled to all three kids at a very young age the importance of having a very strong and hard work ethic with the goal to outwork everyone around us in all aspects of life. You cannot teach heart is also something one of my good buddies, Luke Barker, used to tell me all the time when he was coaching me in MMA. He was very encouraging to me about my mindset and would remind me that the mindset I had growing up and the same mindset that I had as a Navy SEAL was going to give me the advantage as long as I didn't get complacent in life, in Jiu-Jitsu, and MMA. Luke embodied that mindset as well. He was diagnosed with brain cancer and given less than 6 months to live. But Luke, being Luke, fought for over 20 months because of the heart and mindset that he had for life in general. Today, we have the honor of sitting down with a jiu-jitsu phenom, who I know that makes him uncomfortable, me saying. But as you get to know more about this man, you'll understand why I say that. Has shown that his never settle mindset and the desire to win in all aspects of life is what drives him daily in all of the things he does. Steffen Banta, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate you having us here, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Come on, Will. Lucas, what's up, buddy?
The first time I met Steffen, the word prodigy was used.
Yes.
Yeah.
You guys are too nice.
Wow.
It's
accurate.
factual. Yeah.
It's a factual thing.
Yeah.
So what was life growing up for you?
Yeah. So I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas, kind of close to TCU.
Go Frogs.
Oh yeah. Although I went to SMU, everybody always says, like, man, I don't play pick any side, you know?
Yeah, whatever.
Doesn't matter to me. But yeah, I had a very much, I had a great childhood. My family's incredible. They supported me through, everything I've done, and, guided me in a really good direction. My mom, she's an attorney by trade.
Oh, nice.
But she gave that up to raise my sister and I. So she kind of, decided to do the stay-at-home mom thing, but she also built a business. So my family's in property management.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she wanted to do that. And then my dad was a high school teacher growing up, 7th and 8th grade science.
Nice.
Yeah, so we did that whole thing, growing up. So I had a great childhood, moved around a lot. My parents are kind of entrepreneurs, so once my dad kind of stopped doing his job when I was, I guess right before high school, we just moved around a bunch. Ended up living in Spain for about a year in high school, which is a really cool opportunity.
Wow.
And, lived some other spots, lived in South Texas for a while. Kind of how I started the whole martial arts thing is my dad's a judo black belt from the 90s.
Hardcore judo.
Hardcore judo, man. That's
judo's still hardcore.
But
the
90s
judo in the 90s
was, yeah,
that's a different breed.
A little different, yeah. So he's a real tough guy. He's very quiet though. If anybody that knows me, he's always at every tournament I compete at, and always has supported me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's an amazing man. But I always say, like, still water runs deep. So he's very stoic and doesn't talk too much. But he has a crazy life story. But he's a great man. He got me involved in judo when I was real young. Didn't really stick with it. I didn't like it. And he was always, he had kind of a rough childhood. So he was always like, hey, if you don't want to do it, you're not going to do it. He never really pushed me. He always supported me in anything I wanted to do, but never really pushed me in any big direction.
So when you say that, he pushed you to be great in life, but didn't push you to do things that you weren't comfortable with or didn't like.
Exactly.
Okay.
He wanted me to do well in whatever I pursued. But if I didn't want to go, he wasn't going to be the type of dad that was going to be like, hey, we have to go, or we have to, check these off the boxes. He just wanted to make sure I was, in a good home and in a loving home and things like that, which I was. I have to give that to my family. As I got older, I really realized like how good of a childhood I had, which is, a lot of kids, they talk about the traumas that they had, and everybody has issues, right?
Yeah.
But inside my like nuclear family, I really didn't, man. I had a really blessed childhood. I have an amazing sister. She's 3 years older than I am. And, because of my family, the entrepreneurial thing that they were doing, I grew up mainly homeschooled, which not that many people know. So I was always, in the home. I kind of got taught by my dad, who's, again, it's kind of interesting too, because he was a high school teacher, but he didn't want me to experience, I guess the environment that he was teaching in. So he kind of, wanted me to learn about life and things like that, and kind of find it on my own, and for them to guide me. So that was a big blessing for sure. And then kind of when I started doing more of the grappling, we were involved in, clubs and co-ops, and, I did do some school. I was at Bishop Lynch for a little bit, in Pascal and Fort Worth. And then I kind of started getting bullied around that age. I don't know. I think I always had a confidence in myself, and kids don't like that. As I get older, I see that. It's tallest nail gets hammered down. So I think anytime you're a little different, and again, growing up in more of a homeschool setting, I don't think I really knew in a way to fit in with my peers. Because like my family, we did a bunch of stuff. We owned a tourist business that I worked at for a long time in South Texas. So I was, used to hanging around adults a little bit more than peers my own age. And I think that, I don't know, I think I just maybe rubbed people the wrong way, or I was, an outlier that they didn't like to see. And, I got beat up a few times and got bullied. And, I think I thought because of the little judo that I had, that I was going to be good, but it didn't work that well because I didn't know that much. Yeah. So, I talked to my dad. I said, hey, I want to do something. So I ended up wrestling a season at Bishop Lynch in Dallas. Good school, made some friends. Just did like a semester there though. And then after that, kind of stopped, but I kind of had more of a little bit of a natural affinity for it. And I thought, man, I like this. And then from there, I started training jiu-jitsu, and then it was kind of boom. So I really only started when I was like 17.
So you started jiu-jitsu at 17?
Started jiu-jitsu at 17. Started basically grappling at 17. I had basically a semester of high school wrestling behind that, and then maybe a handful of months of judo. But I think a lot of people think that, you have to train for, 10, 15 years before you can. But I don't think there's a set timeline on how good you can get at something in as short of amount of time. I think it's more what you put into it, and how hard you're willing, not just to work, but to suffer, right?
Yeah. I'm seeing that right now with our son, Aiden. He graduated high school last year, and he's a good kid. You've met him. I mean, he's just a really good kid. Anybody that knows our son, Aiden, you're like, bro, you guys have a phenomenal son.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
He's, never been in trouble. Like, doesn't party, doesn't smoke, doesn't drink, doesn't, none of that stuff. Won't go to parties because he doesn't want to be around it. Loves the Lord, loves jiu-jitsu. So this last year, we're like, hey, man, just focus on jiu-jitsu, competing, having fun. Like, you're going to work for the rest of your life. Like, let's, and, as a father, that's why I'm so excited to have you on this podcast, just because just what you were able to do at a young age, like as a father. And I know Lucas and I talk about this a lot, like just, and his kids are much younger than mine, but it's just incredible. Like as I get older, like I am now, I'm not exaggerating, weekly getting text messages from guys from Double Five going, bro, Aiden is getting good.
It's awesome.
Aiden trashed me today, right? Aiden, and it's cool to see because he's just so in love with the sport. And what prompted that just love and desire for jiu-jitsu for you? Because I know the prodigy thing, phenom thing, that makes you uncomfortable, but that's because you're a super humble human. But there had to be something that just drew you to it, because your dedication to this sport is only matched by the people that are at the top in the world. And you're top in the world. You've been top of the world for a very long time.
Thank you.
What got you there?
I think I enjoy the process. I think that's the biggest deal. For me, like I didn't set out to be like a world champion or to compete a bunch. I was just doing it because I enjoyed it. Like I said, the first kind of reason that I got into it is because I didn't want to get beat up anymore. But then I think once I trained for probably 6 months to a year, that wasn't even really a factor anymore, because I started lifting weights, because I wanted to be better at jiu-jitsu. Everything kind of started surrounding getting better. And I was always kind of like your son. I never really got in trouble, never did the drinking or the smoking thing. Just, again, another thing too, I was kind of, raised a little bit more inside the home a little bit, right? So I didn't really go out and do a lot of those things.
Okay.
I don't think I would have, but also I just didn't have the opportunity.
What a blessing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Everyone that's like, oh, if your kids aren't out enjoying life, it's like, hey, there's some things I actually don't want my kids exposed to.
100%.
And I would,
I
love hearing this from you, because it's just like, yes.
Yeah, for sure.
This is the way when it comes to raising your kids. I mean,
sure.
You're not sheltering. You weren't sheltered.
No.
But you were protected to grow into being a mighty man of God, which you are, and a phenomenal athlete. And clearly your parents did it the right way.
Thank you.
So the love came from just the process.
Yeah, I think the process, and I think you have to enjoy the uncomfortableness of it, as like specifically with jiu-jitsu. It always came pretty easy to me. It always came pretty easy to me. but I just always enjoyed it. I don't know if I ever looked for necessarily the why of why I enjoyed it. I think it was a good escape in my mind. You know, when I'm on the mats, I don't think about anything else. I think a lot of people find that to be true. Like any problems that you have in your life just kind of disappear. And one of my buddies always described it. He's like, hey, if you can learn how to be uncomfortable under, 250, like somebody Isaac size, bottom out, like that's better than any Xanax. That's always what he told me. I don't know about that, but it is
maybe not good. During the time.
Yeah, maybe not during the time, but if you can learn,
figure it out.
When you can learn how to be uncomfortable in those spots. And it gave me a lot of confidence for other areas of my life too. Like, when I ended up in college and stuff, I would have to speak and I'd be nervous. I was like, I just competed a couple weeks ago in front of, thousands of people, and, I could have gotten my arm broken or could have gotten choked out. And it just made a lot of other things easier. Like if you do something difficult, it makes a lot of the other things easier. But my passion for it, I just love the movement. I love the connection with, you have with other people, the friendships you build. I mean, knowing you is through jiu-jitsu. A lot of my best friends are from jiu-jitsu. It's really given me, even, all the stuff I'm doing right now, the catalyst for it, even the 9 to 5 that I'm working right now is from jiu-jitsu.
Pretty rad.
Yeah.
You got a pretty cool thing going on in life.
For sure.
Which we'll dive into. I remember following you on social media just because as I, started cross training over at Double Five and started meeting more people, and then that's the power of social media. Like people want to talk crap about social media. It's a tool. You can use 100%. It for good. You can use it for bad. And I love the networking aspect and the people that I get to meet. And I remember connecting with you on social media, and I'm like, good Lord, like this dude is awesome. And everything I heard from Isaac, right? Our close buddy Isaac, and you and Isaac have been, you guys have been homies for a very long time.
10 years, yeah.
10 years, man. What a blessing to be friends with Isaac for 10 years. What's that been like? What's like one life lesson that you'd pull from being just knowing and being around and being a friend of Isaac for the last 10 years?
That's hard, man. There's a lot.
I know.
There's a lot.
Hey, you can give as many as you want.
Yeah. I think the first time that I met Isaac, he was just such a kind man.
Yes.
And I've met other people now through my life. He was probably one of the first people that I met. He's one of the people that brought me closer to God, to be honest. That's a big deal right there.
Yeah.
In and of itself, maybe the biggest deal.
I would say the number one.
Yeah, for sure. But just the way he treats his family, and the way he kind of brought me in, like when I first became close with him, I would always come out to Corinth and hang out with his family. And he lived with his aunt and uncle at the time. So we'd go upstairs and watch movies and I was hanging out with his wife. And, when they had their first kid, Zeke, I remember he called me. He's like, dude, you're the second person I'm telling, or something like that. Like just such an amazing guy. And he's such a kind dude too. He could be a lot more vicious than he is, even in the mat room. I'm always trying to tell him, like, you got to be a little bit meaner, man. You got to,
Dude, we would joke with him about that in our Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu group text. And we joke because it's more of like we're all kind of nervous of like, what would that be like?
Yeah, for sure. No, he's a gentle giant for sure. For people that don't know, Isaac is a, 285 to 320 pound former UTEP D1 college ball player that's a jiu-jitsu brown belt now. So he can be a little scary.
Yeah, he's down to like the 280s, I think.
He? Okay.
Yeah, he's been slimming up, which is even more terrifying.
It's a big 280.
Because he's even faster.
Yeah.
Isaac is a great example, and you are as well, of meekness is not weakness.
Yes, 100%.
It's just a mighty man of God, like you are, like Lucas is, and just also deadly with his jiu-jitsu. Like when we roll, I'm like, there's zero I can do. There's zero I can do when I roll with Isaac. Sure. It's the same thing like when we did the Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu that Pedro taught.
Yeah.
And Pastor Tyron gave his testimony, which that was so awesome. Incredibly powerful. Had a lot of salvations there. I remember rolling, for me, it was just put me to it. I had to roll with Joao, then Pedro, and then you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, what? Like, I can't do anything against any of you. Like, there's zero I can do against you guys. All right. So going back to the love for just the grind.
Yeah, for sure.
And I hate saying that because most people don't actually grind.
That's very true.
Because it's a catchy phrase. Yeah. They want to say it because it's cool. But what about the hard work of jiu-jitsu has made you a better man?
Everything. I think, I don't know if it's just the jiu-jitsu, but it's the people that jiu-jitsu's brought into my life. They've kind of been examples for me. So like coaches that I've had, or, goals that I've set and then accomplished. Like I love, setting out a goal to win something and then doing all the steps to get there and then completing the goal. And I always say, like, whenever, like even like some of the big titles that I've won, I just try to enjoy it only when I'm on the podium. That's kind of like something that I always set for myself. Just because I feel like when you step off the podium, the moment's over. So why would I continue to kind of live in that? And like once that's over, then I'm like, okay, what's next? I still enjoy it. I still say, hey, I've won this or I've done that. But I think people get caught into that complacency moment where they're like, oh, well, I've won this, I've won that. Like, it doesn't really matter though. Like if I step onto the mat and the other person against me, I mean, it's just another man.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's kind of like, what have I put in? And another thing too, that I started doing at brown belt, and I think this took me, you know, my first year at brown belt, had kind of a mixed bag. You know, I medaled at all the majors and all these things. But my second year, you know, I won basically everything. And the big difference was I kept asking myself at the beginning of that year, I asked myself, I said, what would the best in the world do? I just woke up one morning, I had that thought. And I almost wonder if it was, you know, like a divine intervention thing. I woke up with that thought, and one morning I said, what would the best in the world do? And I realized a lot of the things that I was doing weren't aligned with that, right? And one of my mentors, Adam Techman, he always talks to me about, you know, Ray Dalio?
Oh yeah.
Principles, yeah.
Oh yeah, great book.
Great book. And he kind of put me on that, and he has, you know, with his company, he has these values that they have, and one of them is alignment and transparency. Those are the big one is alignment, and the other one's transparency. And I kind of felt like I wasn't really necessarily aligning, and I wasn't being totally transparent with myself. So, you know, once I kind of set that out, I was like, okay, what would the best in the world do? And I just started doing that. You know, the results come.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, I love that. That's powerful. What was your first jiu-jitsu tournament like for you? How old were you? Do you remember what belt?
Yeah, I was a white belt. Must have been 17 or 18. I want to say 17. And I remember it was way harder than I thought, because I came from a more of a hobbyist gym. I came from a Machado gym, and, you know, respect to them, but it's not really a competition level gym, which is just, there's
more self-defense and just the traditional art of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
right?
just the traditional art. And, you know, I didn't really realize what it was going to feel like to go out there and fight another human that's really trying to beat you, even in a grappling setting. Obviously, like there's levels to combat. Like I always say, I'm always hesitant to say, oh, I have a fight coming up, because you know, I've also taught a lot of high-level MMA fighters. You know, one of my students is Macy Chazon. She's ranked number 2 in the bantamweight division in the UFC right now. And I'm like, that's more of a fight. When you can get your head kicked in,
that's a fight.
That's a fight.
When there's striking involved, that's a fight.
Exactly.
Jiu-jitsu competitions are not fights.
They're not fights.
They're incredible.
Yes.
Not taken away from them.
I agree. They're not fights.
But it is not a fight.
It's not a fight.
And I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah,
That makes me happy.
But is it a war?
Definitely not. Yeah. That's always the thing too. Right?
That's always the other one. Right?
Yeah, guys are like, oh, I'm going to war. I'm like, I know guys that have gone to war. I think being in a cage with a referee is a little different.
Yeah. But the warrior mindset.
Yeah, I mean,
we'll
I
give
like
them
it.
that, right?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your
sorry.
wife just had your gi dry cleaned. You're not going to war.
Yeah, you're not going to war, man. Like, you got your mouth guard in.
You're not. Yeah.
I don't think you're going to war, man.
I can smell your Febreze from over here.
Yeah.
It's not war.
Yeah, exactly.
So much harder. That's amazing. Much harder than you expected.
It was much harder than I expected. Yeah, and I remember I fought this kid from Lovato's gym. I don't know who it was. I don't think he ever did much, but he was real tall, taller than I was. And I remember passing his guard, and I think it took me a couple minutes, and I was like, this sucks. That's what I remember. That's honestly like one of the most like poignant memories. I just remember thinking this is hard, and I'm not really enjoying this.
I don't know if I want to keep doing it.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. And then I ended up, I think the second match, I think I put the guy out. I want to say I put the guy out in this final. I put him to sleep. Wow. That was the first time ever strangling somebody unconscious. So that was weird. I didn't know that it was supposed to work like that.
Well, what did you think happened?
How did you react to that? Like, were you freaked out? Were you fired up? Were you just like...
I mean, I think I kind of freaked out because I remember him seizing because I kept holding on. That was the thing too. I'm a white belt. I don't know what's going on. I choked him out.
Clearly isn't paying attention.
Yeah, and I think he was out. I mean, just for a couple of seconds. But even, he started kind of, doing the whole, his blood pressure was probably resetting and whatever else. But I remember getting real nervous and picking his legs up, and he got up and he was okay. And I was like, I thought I'd really hurt him. Oh man. So that kind of freaked me out.
Because you're not like a natural, violent, aggressive, angry person. You just like to compete because
I love to compete. Yeah, and I think my mindset has changed. Like I don't want to break anybody physically, but I love breaking people mentally. And now especially like as I'm at the higher level tournaments, that's all I want to do. I just love breaking people mentally. That's something I really enjoy, taking them to deep water, drowning them. I mean, it's just true. Like one of my goals, like after I compete with people, I want to break them so bad mentally they don't want to do the sport anymore. And that's kind of my mindset once I'm in there now. But I think you have to have that mindset at a higher level.
To compete at the level that you compete at 100%.
Yeah.
And it was no different from what we would do in the SEAL teams for training. Like our goal in the SEAL teams when I was an instructor was to push guys to their absolute limit and then throttle it back so that it can be a learning opportunity. So as an athlete, obviously I have nothing to compare to what you've done when it comes to like sports or competition, but that mindset I think is very healthy. If you plan on continuously being a world champion and being undoubtedly one of the greatest jiu-jitsu practitioners in the world, you have to have that mindset. Okay. So white belt tournament, first you're like, I don't know if I really like this.
Yeah.
And then you choke some dude unconscious and you're like, ooh, blood in the water.
Yeah.
Maybe I like this.
Yeah. Second match was easier for sure.
Like, oh, this is much more fun.
Yeah.
What was blue belt jiu-jitsu like for you?
So after I ended up leaving Machado, I got injured there. And my dad just didn't really feel like I got totally supported like he wanted me to in the injury process. He was like, hey, I'm going to pull you out here. And I was still, I wasn't even done with high school yet. Oh, wow. So I ended up over at, we looked up for a competition school in the area and we were just asking around. And at this point I think I'd competed like 3 times. Yeah. And I ended up over at Mark Santalante's gym, Soul Fighters.
Dude, awesome.
Yeah. So I ended up over there as probably a fresh 18-year-old.
That must have been awesome.
It was super cool, man. And it was in the back of the DFW gun range and training center at the time. So he'd be teaching and there'd be a pause and you hear pop, 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 pop.
Just natural testosterone.
Yeah, just flowing through the room.
Flowing.
Gunpowder and probably lead all in the room too.
Oh, yeah.
So I trained there for a number of years. But it was really good, man. Those were like the war days. That's when I met my now business partner, Laurence Marion. He and I became really close. And I was kind of cross training between Marcus's gym, all the Soul Fighter affiliations kind of in the area. That team now splintered to a few different teams. Before Miga was at the time. Yep. So was Joao.
Splintered, but with good relationships.
Good relationships. But just, things didn't work out and they ended up kind of moving things around. And then at the same time that I was training with Marcus, I remember one day I showed up to, I think, a noon class and I walked in and I was still a blue belt, no titles, nobody knew me at all. Not that everybody knows me now, but nobody knew me. Like I was just a random blue belt, fresh faced, nerdy, big glasses on. And I remember I walked in the room and it was like Joao Gabriel, Formiga, Diogo Moreno, Kit Dale, Manuel Hibamar, Nachieli de Jesus, for Texas, like it didn't get better at the time. There's just, everybody was in there. And I remember looking around like, oh, wow. And I was like, I've seen that guy on YouTube. I've seen that guy. And I didn't even know all their names. But I just knew that it was a really good room to be in. And nobody would train with me, of course, because they don't know me and whatever else. But I ended up training with Joao and he just abused me, man, for like 10 minutes. It was good though. It was a great round. Yeah. I mean, that was kind of his time where he was, medaling ADCC and that was back in the days when he was having yearly wars with Buchecha and he was like close to my age now, which is crazy to think of. Like seeing like the mindset now, like, cause I think he was 26 or 27, I'm 25 now. Yeah. And so I kind of imagine like, if I saw a young kid like that now, like it's kind of an inverse cause I was like 17 at the time and now Joao's in like his early 30s, he's a dad and stuff.
He poured into you.
Poured into me, yeah. It took some time and that's another thing too. Like I don't think anybody's deserving of anything. And so I always came with that mindset of like, just try to give without the expectation of receiving anything. I think that's big. So I would always just try to provide value and just be in the room and listen and pick up some techniques and things like that. But I ended up training with Marcus, Marcus and I got really close. I trained a bunch. And then at the time they were talking about opening up this gym called the LoneStar Pro Training Center. Do you remember that?
I don't think I was here at the time. What time frame was this? What year?
This is probably 2018 to 2020, 2021.
We had just moved here in 2018.
Okay.
I was training down in Keller. At the end of 2018, I started training. Actually, no, April of 2018, I started training at Peak Jiu-Jitsu. Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I remember Marcus told me like, hey, there's this gym that they're opening up, but it's only for brown and black belts and you got to be a professional and you're not a professional and, you're still in high school and you can't go train over here, only a blue belt.
Wait, thanks for telling me.
Yeah. I was like, appreciate it. Like, ooh, can I go? And I think one day I snuck in with him and they basically told me like, Joachim, he's like, hey dude, you can't be here. Like, you can't train, but you can watch, and I was like, okay, I'll watch. And then I think I got called into drill and then I rolled a couple of rounds and they just beat the crap out of me. I remember I left, I had like 2 dislocated fingers, like no kidding. Like my fingers dislocated during practice, my floating rib had popped. Like that was just the way they train. I mean, it's just really hard training and I wasn't ready for that level yet, but I wanted to. Yeah. And from then on, like that was kind of like I was like, oh, like you're going to say I can't do it? So I'm going to have to come here all the time. Yeah. And so I just learned the times that they had practices and I would just show up. Right. And they wouldn't let me on the mat for a while. And then eventually I kind of, integrated in the room a little bit. And I heard the back end of the story later from Joao when I got my black belt. I still didn't know. Mm-hmm. But he ended up being like, okay, well, you can train here, but like you have to do all the rounds. And you have to show up early. Mm-hmm. And I just did that, But I mean, I'm not kidding. Like I would go in and I would just get smashed for months and months and months and months and months. And I remember from the moment I got there to when I told when I was told I was not able to come back. And then just the dedication that I'd shown and the work ethic to not quit, within like 6 months for me, he'd given me the keys.
Bro, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Within 6 months.
Within 6 months, yeah.
Hey, you're not allowed here to, here's keys to the gym.
Yep, here's keys to the gym. Because he trusted me, right?
Were you still a blue belt or were you
I was
purple
a blue belt.
yet?
I was a blue belt.
Not even purple, bro.
Yeah, still no titles yet even. Just a blue belt. And well, because I would show up every day, make sure the mat was clean, gave respect. Another thing too is like, just shut up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Like I have some students now, like some student came up to me the other day and was like, hey, I want to be a world champion. And I love that. You know, like I appreciate that, you know, you're going to preface the conversation with that. But like, why don't you show me? You know, and like I never said that. I still have never said that to this day. You know, and Joel's always mentioned that, like, Steffen, you just came every day. You just showed up every single day. You were 30 minutes early every single day, and you just ate whatever I gave you, and you took all the butt whoopings, and then now, you know, the product on the other side. And I was just very quiet. I mean, I think Joel told me, he said for the first 6 months he didn't know if I could talk. He was like, man, you came in, man. He's like, man, you wear pajamas. And he always tells me, because I would come in with like a shirt tucked into pants, you know, and I would walk in and I'd be like, oh, hey, you know, like real meek. And he was like, man, I didn't know you had a voice. I didn't know if you spoke Portuguese. He's always jokes around. He's like, I didn't know anything. He's like, I heard later he called his dad and was like, hey, there's this guy, he's coming around. He's really annoying me. He won't stop showing up. And his dad was like, well, and Joel was like, man, I'm beating him up so bad every day. I don't know why he keeps coming. And then I was like, well, hey, why don't you give him like a year to see if he still shows up and then like kind of bring him under your wing. So that was kind of Joel's plan. And thankfully I just didn't quit. I just showed up every day. I just was quiet. I squared away. You know, like I always say, you can control two things: your on time and your attitude, right?
Come on. And
so that's all I did. I was just on time and, you know, had a good attitude. I remember one of my favorite stories is I think I had stayed over at one of my girlfriend's houses in Fort Worth or something at the time, this girl I was seeing, and I was tasked with opening up the gym in the morning. And I was so freaked out that I was going to miss it that I just stayed up the whole night. Right? Because you get that, you know?
No,
like,
I get it.
Like I was like, what if my alarm doesn't go off?
Yep.
Like an important job interview. And I was like, well, I think at the time there was only one set of keys.
Oh my gosh, that's terrifying.
It's terrifying, you know. And I had and I was checking in my pocket, you know. I'm still that person. You know, I'm like, oh, I got to make sure I'm squared away, and because it's a lot of responsibility to have the keys to the pro training for all the black belts. You know, at the time is Joao, Pedro, Formiga, like all these guys, and it was up to me to open it. And I remember I left at like 6 a.m. for the like 9 or 10 a.m. training, because I was so freaked out I wasn't going to make it back because I was in Fort Worth. And I drove back out. I think I got at McDonald's on the way because I was, you know, trying to get some coffee in me. And I opened the gym up, cleaned everything, and then I fell asleep sitting against, because at the Pro Center, there's these big pillars, which the Pro Center is now Alliance, Dallas, at this Joao's gym. Back in the day, it was just mats, and we would just kill each other. And I fell asleep. I remember Joao came in, I don't know, I think I'd been asleep for probably 30 minutes. And he like took his belt, and he's Joao's
oh my gosh,
the most explosive guy maybe I've ever trained with. I mean,
yes.
he's 6'4", 265 at the time, 270, all just neck and back.
Explosive power.
And he took his belt and slammed it about 2 inches above my forehead. It's like a gunshot went off right next to my ear. And he just goes, wake up, time for train.
Oh my God.
You know? And
this is what dreams and nightmares are made of.
Exactly.
Man, that's incredible. Now, I'm very thankful that you're on this podcast, because eventually millions of people are going to hear what you just talked about. But I have a question for you. How often have you shared that with any of your current students in regards to what you did?
None.
Why not? Not to call you out. I'm just curious. No,
for sure. So I kind of think I shouldn't have to lead you on how you should act, you know, and I don't want to have to tell people the right way to do things. I just want them to do it. Like I'll guide you as a coach. I'm going to guide you on the mat, but I feel like having that conduct is an off the mat thing. Now, if you're having bad conduct, right, you're doing inappropriate things, I'll give you a warning. But like showing up, being on time, having a good attitude, if you want me to like help you, I will. But generally speaking, like when somebody comes up to tell me that they want to be a world champion, I'm not going to tell them that they shouldn't have come up to me and said that. You know, that might not be my ideal thing. I mean, I don't think I've shared that with my students necessarily, just because I want to see it from them. You know, like, I'm waiting to find my me. Yeah. You know.
No, I understand that for sure. I'm sorry, I didn't phrase that question properly. I'm just thinking, if I was one of your students, man, I would have loved to have.
I might have to share some more of that stuff for sure.
Because think about this, and I agree with what you're saying. You have to have it yourself. You can't convince somebody to come in. Like the whole, hey, you can't teach heart. Like I knew there was a reason I was opening that quote with this episode with you, because you can't teach heart.
No.
Now, you can guide somebody and see the value of developing a heart through hard work ethic. And I'm just thinking, like, how incredible would it be if you were able to share that with your students more? Now, the podcast is out, so this is going to be awesome. They're going to hear it. But I just think of that, like, I don't think, and take this the right way, please know my intent.
Of course.
I don't think you fully understand the impact that you have over people's lives because you're still young. I'm a lot older than you. I mean, I could, I guess, technically I couldn't be your dad, but close, right?
Yeah.
Close to it. And, even me being 42 would get so much value from just the things that you said, just in regards to, like, hey, cool, you want to be a world champion? Here's what it takes. Here's what you need to do. Hey, I'm never going to ask you to do these things, but here's the things that you should be doing, because now you can show people the mirror. And when they see what's in front of them or the opportunity,
I agree.
It better, I don't know, directs them. Right. And so, I don't know. I was just curious. I
agree with you.
I think it's awesome. But, hey, we're taught how we're taught. And Joel never did that with you. He didn't beat you.
Yeah, until I figured it out.
Until you figured it out, which there's a lot of value to that.
There's a lot of value.
There's a lot of that in the SEAL teams, man.
That's old fashioned.
But I will say in the SEAL teams, the reason why we were able to facilitate and expedite our growth as a fighting unit is because you'd have the old school beatings with good conversations.
Yes.
And so that's why I'm thankful that you're
and
on
I do
this
try to do
podcast.
that now too.
Yeah,
Because a lot of the times I think I just got beat up and I didn't really know why. In some ways, like, even when they were upset with me, because I'm sure there's moments like that, I would just leave and practice and my teeth would be loose. And I'm like, I don't know, why did that happen? And I kind of just, figured out trial by fire, I guess, if that's the right word. But I definitely try to have conversations with my guys now. Like, I'll kind of communicate with them like, hey, this is the culture that's expected.
Nice.
And if they don't fit into that, they can just go.
Cool. So you got your blue belt under who?
Got my blue belt under the Machados.
Okay.
And I left like around that time.
Okay, you left. And then purple belt under.
Yeah, purple belt. No, I got my purple belt under Marcus.
Oh, cool.
Because I was kind of how the split was is every morning. So at the time, Joel was just training. There was no instruction at the pro center. It was the training starts at 10 a.m. It goes till about 11:30 or 12, and you're just gonna fight basically for 2 hours.
Awesome.
No drills, no technique, no stretching. Just war every morning. And we would have a lot of black belts from here. I won't mention any names, but we'd have a lot of guys show up, and Joe always told me, he always told me like, oh, you were my blue belt monster. Because he would pair up all these black belts in the area with me my first round. And as a blue belt, I don't know if it's unkind is the word, but I would just go. I had one speed. And that was the speed that I was taking. So I was just...
It's what you know.
It's what I knew. And, now I'm able to titrate and kind of, train up to somebody's level. But at the time, it didn't really matter, if you were just a visitor.
But they're black belts. You, as a blue belt, should be able to just go, and they should be able to handle that.
I agree. But the environment that I was in and the exposure that I was getting, it was just such a quick train up, because I was getting to train every day. I mean, I was doing 10 rounds a day with, multiple time black world champions, back to back to back. I mean, I have all these photos of like me, like 25 black belts or 18 black belts. And then at the far end of the corner is just me with a blue belt, and the only blue belt allowed in that room. And so imagine that, imagine how blessed I was. That's the other thing too. Like, I was on the side of all the butt whoopings, but on the flip side of that, it was such a blessing because I kind of had an ego boost too, because I would go into tournaments, win or lose, I would fight guys and I'd be like, well, you're not Joao Gabriel. You're not Manuel Hibamar that just won Nogi Worlds at black belt, and I'm training with him every single day, and Joao's killing me, all the time. And that was kind of a big thing for me. I felt always... like when I fought Luke Griffith in the open class final at Nogi Worlds, I looked, I was like, you're big, but like I train with a lot of dudes that are just, like, you're just another big guy.
Yeah.
And I think you have to have exposure, and you have to have, you have to learn how to live in the uncomfortableness.
Yeah. And because of that exposure to chaos, it allowed you to have peace.
100%. Yeah.
And confidence.
100%.
And would you agree that your confidence in competition and just this, I'm going to win at life, and just the whole never settle mindset that you literally exude in all things of your life came from that chaos?
I think so. I think it came from the chaos. I also think it came from my parents' expectations too.
Yep.
In my family, and specifically my dad, he's just a squared away guy. Like I always talk about him, and he just showed me what it was to be a man in a lot of ways, and just the way he treated my mother and the way he treats and always made sure he took care of his family. And I see that, and, I see that likeness in you and one of my good other mentors, Randy Rozzell. Like I see that. I was talking to Randy the other day, you had him on the show. He's a former Navy SEAL as well. Or retired Navy SEAL. And he's always like, man, I'll work 4 jobs. Yeah. If I need to. If I need to go to McDonald's, I'll do it to provide for my family.
100%.
Things like that. And that's always how my dad was, not just in the protect and provide way, but just like, hey, be squared away. I I'd never really got, in trouble much growing up, but I always wanted his approval. I think that was a big thing. And the way he kind of set up my childhood was, I was always looking for that. And, I think it's cool too, because he never really got to compete. He got a lot of injuries doing the whole judo thing. And so I think he's been able to live vicariously through me a little bit.
That's cool.
And he acts like he doesn't care.
But he cares.
He cares.
Well, and that's the powerful thing about us being parents. I want my kids to win more than I want to win.
100%.
I want my kids to be... I want my kids to have a life that I'd never dreamed of. And that's a cool thing about a parent,
Yep.
And your dad and mom did that for you.
They did it
My
for me.
dad and mom did that for me.
Yep.
Lucas's parents did that for him as well.
Yep.
And it just shows in like how we live our lives. And so your parents instilling those things into you at such a young age was incredible. And then you get the blessing of just pure chaos of just these monster phenoms
Yes.
in the jiu-jitsu world that just... It was like this perfect little storm to build up you as an athlete.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about the brown belt run that you had.
For sure, yeah. So I won pretty much everything at brown belt. I ended up winning at blue, and I got my purple. I think I was a blue belt for maybe a year and a half. I won No Gi Worlds, Gi Worlds, Gi Pans, Gi Worlds. I think at one point I had the #1 ranking on AJP, Flow Grappling, and IBJJF Gi and No Gi, all at the same time.
As a blue belt?
As a blue belt, yeah.
That's rad.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So I ended up getting my purple belt, and then COVID happened, and that kind of shut down everything. I think I won American Nationals, and Joe came up to me, and he ended up surprising me with a brown belt at one of the promotions, and I was not expecting it because I hadn't proven anything at purple belt. But he was like, "Hey, I think you're ready for it," because I wanted to win all my titles, that I wanted to have a world title at every belt and all these things. But they canceled Pans, they canceled Worlds. That year 2020, and so I was like, well, okay, I'm not going to tell him what to do, obviously.
Smart.
I'm still scared of that man.
Move.
And so he gave me my brown belt, and I remember when I got it, I was like, ooh, okay, this is a whole new level, because obviously the leg locks, and my jiu-jitsu guys will know, it's kind of a new thing. Brown belt's the one before black, so get a little bit nervous. But I competed. The first year that I competed was 2021 as a brown belt, like really got into it. And I was kind of telling you guys before the show started, it was kind of a mixed bag of results. That was the year that I think I was focused, but I wasn't honed in necessarily.
Okay.
And then around that same time, during my purple belt, I also started college at Southern Methodist University in Dallas too.
Cool. And what were you going to college for?
Econ and business.
Okay.
So once I turned 18, I kind of told my family, I was like, hey, I want to do the jiu-jitsu thing. I kind of want to pursue that. And they were like, yeah, but you're not making really much money from it. So basically, get in the military, get into college, or get out. And I said, okay, I'll do college. And so thankfully, I did community college for the first little bit to see kind of how it would, and I think that's a great thing. I think a lot of guys should do that.
Smart.
Saves a lot of money. You can get all your prereqs out of the way. And then by the time I went into SMU, I kind of felt like I had a good handle on things. And because I'd done well, grades are not hard to get in community college, good grades. I got some scholarship money and some things like that. So it made the weight a little bit better, because SMU is an expensive school. Anybody that's in Texas knows it's a pretty expensive private school. So I started going there. And then, once I got into school, I think I kind of used that as an excuse not to compete in some ways, because I was like, oh, I got to study up, focus on my studies and things like that. But once I got my brown belt, I'm like, hey, what have I been spending these last few years doing? I still have this passion, and so I don't think I competed for maybe 14 months at one point.
Wow.
Yeah, I took some time off.
How'd that feel? Like, how were you mentally with that? Did it affect you in a negative way, or was that the rest you needed?
It may have been the rest. I don't think it's the rest I needed, but I've always been very focused on training. I honestly probably enjoy the training more than I do the competing.
Okay.
Like, I enjoy going out there and fighting and, doing that whole thing, but I just love being around, my friends and training. And it's I think, I won't categorize you, but at least for me, the mind that I have to be doing something every day that's difficult and something that's hard to kind of stay sane in a lot of ways. And so I think that the jiu-jitsu offers me that, and that was something that I really wanted to keep pursuing. So I was still training, 2 times a day, 3 times a day during this whole time, but I just wasn't competing. And also it was COVID as well. That large portion of that was COVID. And so partly like times that I could have been competing, I didn't compete for probably 6 months.
Okay.
And the other time was COVID and kind of the whole thing, because that shut down stuff for a few months. But right after COVID, I got the brown belt. Don't remember the exact date, but got the brown belt. And then 2021, I would beat guys locally that were winning, the world championships at brown belt, or, winning Pans. But then I go to Pans and I lose to them by a point or an advantage or a referee decision. I just didn't feel like I had it figured out. And then around that same time, pro training was no longer a thing. Joe had kind of opened up his gym. And then, we were double five for a while, and then we were alliance. Things were just kind of all over the place. And I didn't really feel like I was still training with Joao, but it was just kind of he and I. It's hard to get a great, amazing training with just two people. Yeah. And so I was kind of, I didn't feel like my training was the best. And that's another, a lot of people, they can use the excuse, my training's not as good as it should be, so I'm not going to compete or something like that. And that was kind of probably my mindset a little bit too. But then, like I said, I woke up that one day and I just had this vision in my mind. I was like, well, I want to be the best in the world at my belt. I have no excuse not to be. I know I can be. And what would the best in the world do? Right. And that was kind of my question. And so, I ended up calling around and I got up with Exos and I started, you familiar with Exos is? It's like a physical training place.
Oh yes, sorry. I was thinking jiu-jitsu. I was like, oh man, I'm so bad with names. But
no, all good. So Exos is
yes.
Yeah, they do a lot of stuff with like combine. They'll prep a lot of athletes or guys that are currently in the NFL or NBA. So I called them, went in for a consult, started lifting with them. So it's kind of my first foray into like really professional strength and conditioning. It was very expensive, but I stayed with them for probably 4 to 6 months during that time period. And then I ended up getting sponsored by Ronnie over at OakFit. So he kind of took over my training from then. Nice. So that was super awesome. I was very thankful for him at that time.
I don't know him. I might have met him at an event, but I've heard nothing but good things
Yeah,
about him.
Great guy. Yeah, he's very squared away. Built his business from the ground up. And so I ended up getting with them, and then I started competing and taking my training a little more seriously. And at the time, I heard about another spot that was kind of like Pro Center, but like a new version of it. But I didn't have the invite for it, right? And so I was kind of like, where can I find this out? And I ended up speaking to a guy and ended up showing up, and again, showed up early, right? And I trained, and the training was mainly Iago de Souza, Alexander Trans, Davi Cabral, Vinicius Garcia, Pedro Rocha was going at the time, on and off. Andre Gomez, I'm trying to remember all the names, but just like kind of a killer's row of black belts from the area.
Nice.
And I went in there and, I was a brown belt at the time. And I remember I trained with Iago and he's much smaller than him. He just whooped me up. And I was like, man, I got to be here. And so I started going there every single day. And it was kind of, a repeat. I had that. I had Exos. I was still training with Joao. And then, I remember that year, my main goal was to win one major at every belt. That was always my goal. And for people that know, majors are Europeans, Pans, Worlds, or Brazilian Nationals. Those are the 4 majors. And then you have, obviously on the Nogi side, you have Nogi Worlds, Nogi Brazilian Nationals, Nogi Pans, Nogi Europeans. And then you have ADCC, basically. It's kind of how, those are kind of the big 8-9 titles that you can win. And I just wanted to win one, right? And that was kind of my goal. I remember I went to Pans, I lost in the final by DQ, which was kind of crushing. And I came back and I made some changes. And then, because COVID, all the events were running more concurrently. So that year, Pans was like 6 months apart instead of a year. And I was like, okay, I got 4 more months to prep, 5 more months to prep. So I just killed myself in the training, and I just worked really hard, made sure I squared away with my diet, my sleep. You can be doing so many other things off the mat. I started doing a lot of tape study. I mean, just everything to be the best that I could be, doing a lot of strength and conditioning. And then I went there and I ended up winning Pans, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, that was my first major. And then, 2 months after Pans was Worlds, because that's kind of how they split it up at the time. And I had one opponent. He's an awesome guy. His name's Nico McGlissick. He's from Australia. But he and I were kind of the only 2 guys that were going to win that title. Hiram Gracie, who's kind of one of the last Gracies competing. He's really good. He's a great black belt now. He won a lot of things, but it was just kind of he and I in the super heavy division. It was a super heavy brown belt division. And so I talked to him after, because I fought him again at Worlds in the final, a couple months after Pans, but I fought him in the Pan final. I beat him, very close match. And then I was always looking on his Instagram and kind of seeing what he was doing. And we talked after, he's like, I was doing the same thing to you. Because he was like, I knew it was just going to be you and me in the final. Like everything else was kind of cannon fodder. That's how it felt like. And so I remember I went to the Worlds. Joao flew out, which was awesome, because he hadn't been able to travel for too many of my tournaments. And, my dad is there for basically every single one of my tournaments, which has been really cool. I think he's missed 2 or 3. He's missed 3. And I've competed hundreds of times.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's a testament to his dedication to me. And so I ended up, going to the Worlds. Joao flew out there to support me. I had 5 matches. And then I fought Nico again in the final. And I remember this real visceral moment, because I was in the corner side mat. I think I was on mat 7, and I would just kind of jump the barrier, and I would sit in the stands, and Joao's, massaging me and talking to me. And people that haven't been in a world championship bracket, it feels weird, because you see how the brackets are, and you see these wide brackets on like the competition website, or where you printed out bracket sheet or whatever, and they just get smaller, and you see your name kind of like advance, 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 advance. And you're looking at other guys on the opposite side of the bracket and you're like, okay, and they're looking at you, and it's, when you're in the bullpen, it's a very like, everybody's sizing each other up. It's a very, it's a tense feeling, and I remember I would not even go back to the bullpen because I didn't want to feel that. I would just step outside the mats and Joe was talking to me and say, hey, you can do this. This is your time, and 10 years prior to the day, he won the super heavy brown belt.
No way.
Division. And so he was like, hey, you're going to do this a decade after me as my student. Like, you need to do this. This is like your destiny here. And I was praying a lot that day, I remember. And I don't know, you get certain feelings. And I just knew I had a feeling I was going to win. I'll never say that, there's some matches I go, I'm going to win this. But when it's like the Worlds or something kind of, I feel it's a little bit more out of my hands. I feel like that has to be, God has to give you the blessing on all of them, but especially the big ones. I think he's kind of walking with you in a way.
That's awesome.
And so that's always kind of how I felt. But I ended up fighting Nico in the final, and Nico's now a black belt under Andre Galvao from Atos, who's, probably one of the most accomplished jiu-jitsu competitors ever. Incredible. And I remember Joao and him were talking in Portuguese, like across the thing. And I just remember Galvao going like this. He did like this motion. And I like Galvao. Like he's cool.
But I get it.
It's that competition spirit. And Joao's pointing at him and talking in Portuguese. And he looks at me, he's like, now you can't lose, bro. And
that's amazing.
I was like, all right. And so I remember I went out there, and it's probably one of my favorite matches, man, because it was a war.
Was he doing that signal towards you or towards Joao?
Towards us.
Do it towards me, I'd be like, whatever.
Yeah.
But towards my coach?
Yeah, it was. But they're friends.
I get it.
Yeah.
But in that moment,
it did not feel very friendly.
If someone did that towards Formiga,
you got to show out.
Bro.
You have to. Yeah. And so I ended up fighting Nico in the final, and I have this photo where I'm standing next to Matt's side, and I'm looking at the mat, and Nico's kind of looking at me, and I was like, I know I can beat this guy. I beat this guy 8 weeks ago, but I wanted that world title so bad, and I was working every day. That was like my only goal. I'd wake up in the morning, I want to be world champion. Go to bed, I want to be world champion. And I had that dedication. I knew I'd done everything for it, right? But the match ended up. I passed his guard in the first like 90 seconds, and then he kind of came back and like started to sweat me, and then it was back and forth, and the score was 5-4, right? And I was one penalty away from getting disqualified, right? And I remember we were in this position, and I couldn't even unlock my hand how tired I was, and I looked over at the clock, and I saw like 3.5 minutes left, and it's an 8-minute match, and I was like, man, anybody can do anything for 3.5 minutes. That's kind of always been a thing too. Like I'll see the time, like, well, anybody can do that. Like anybody can do something for 3.5 minutes. And Fabio Gurgel, who's like the general for Team Alliance, he ended up coming over and yelling. And as soon as he started yelling, I was like, okay, now I'm not going to get DQ'd because that's the owner of Alliance, and the biggest team, one of the biggest teams in the world. So I was like, okay, I'm probably not going to get DQ'd. But I mean, yeah, it was a very hard match, and I ended up winning that. And I was trying to tie my belt because you can get another penalty if you tie your belt too slow. Like if it takes too much time, the ref was looking at his clock.
Really?
And I was trying to tie, my hands were numb, so I was like kind of trying to like make it happen. I was like, man, if I get DQ'd and lose a world title off a belt tie, I'm never going to recover from this.
That's a real thing.
It's a real thing, yeah. I mean, I don't think they would have DQ'd me, but you can. Like if you're taking too much time, they can give you another penalty.
Wow.
Can your coach tie your belt for you if you're like,
No,
hey, I
you
have
can't
no
step off the mat
dexterity?
either. Like if you go out to hug, they can DQ you then as well. Like if you run off the mat, like and if you talk to the ref, like I almost lost the world title at blue belt because I talked to the ref. Like you can't say anything. You can only talk to your coach, and your coach can talk to the ref. It's very, I don't know. IBJJF has some
Political. It's okay.
Yeah, they have some interesting things that they do. I don't agree with everything they do, but generally speaking, I think IBJJF and ADCC are the two most respected and best.
Yeah. You and I talked about that at one of your tournaments.
Yeah.
We had that conversation.
Yeah.
All right. So you're trying to tie your belt.
Trying to tie my belt, and I ended up winning the Worlds. And then after that, Joe said, hey, I'm going to give you your black belt. Remember we talked about it when we were in Dallas. He's always been very open with me. And I told him, I said, hey, if you want to give it to me, give it to me. But because of COVID and some other things, last year I didn't get to compete. I either medaled or I didn't medal it, but I never won any of them, of all the no-gi majors. I've won every gi major at the time. So I won gi pants and gi worlds, which at the time is all really I could travel to, because it was in the States, and I didn't want to go overseas at the time. And he was like, okay, I'll give you till December. And I said, okay, well, no-gi worlds is like December 10th or 12th. Can you do it? He's like, okay, well, our belt promotion, I'm going to put it on the 17th. Win what you can until then, basically. So he kind of gave me a carte blanche. So from that point on, it was about, I think that was May, let's do like 5-6 months. Yeah, it's like six months-ish. I competed like every chance I got. So, and I went undefeated the whole time. Yeah. And
Holy cow.
So I competed at, right after that, right after Gi Worlds, I think I did I don't remember, but I was doing a lot of super fights at the time too. I think I beat 7 or 8 black belts before I got my black belt. I beat Igor Schneider, who's the Europeans. I think at the time was the Europeans Open ultra heavyweight champ at black belt. Beat him in a super fight.
Who were you doing these super fights with?
A lot of them were with this guy that I met through the gym that I was doing the pro training at. His name is Michael Smith. He owns that clothing brand called Skilled Violence.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he was putting on a bunch of events, and he would always just be like, "Dude, you should fight in this." So I got to fight like some undefeated. Like I fought one guy, Stephen Maurer. He's a Bellator fighter. He was undefeated at the time.
Yeah.
6'10", 280 or 260, something like that. Got to fight him. I beat him by inside heel hook. I literally felt like I was David. Like it felt like a David and Goliath moment because he's so huge. And I shook his hand, and my whole arm just disappeared in the handshake. And I had all my buddies there, you know, and I remember like kind of moving with him, and I'm like, I'm not a normal, like this is a different human.
Yeah.
You know, he's such a huge guy. But I got to compete, you know, I was blessed enough to be able to travel and compete. I mean, I competed Denver, Florida multiple times, Vegas, you know, all across the US. I went to Europe for the Nogi Europeans. I was the first American to win double gold with the brown belts in Europeans. I won the weight in the open division.
Wow.
Beat some really good guys. At that point, I think I won Grand Slam in Miami. Did a few super fights, went undefeated in the super fights, won the Skilled Violence Grand Prix, the $5,000 bracket from there. Wow. And then I competed in like every single open I could find all over the country. I was just looking online, boom, put my name here, put my name there. And I started kind of building up more of a reputation. And then it was harder to find fights. You know, like I remember I put my name in for Dallas. It's kind of funny for Dallas Nogi Pans, which is a big tournament. You know, it's the Pan Am's Nogi, it's the second most important Nogi tournament in the IBJJF circuit. I put my name in. There's like 18 people in the super heavy bracket. I put my name in. I checked the next morning. There's 3, including me. Everybody went up and down, you know. And so it was kind of hard to find fights. And I'll be DMing some of the guys, you know, and be like, "Hey man, are you gonna fight?" And they're like, "Oh no, man, I'll see you at Worlds, man. I don't, you know." It's kind of one of those deals. And so it was hard to find fights. So my Nogi Pans final was against a local guy. It's the weirdest deal. I never thought I'd fight in the final of a major against the guy from like Midlothian. I mean, respect to him.
Yeah.
But he wasn't a high level, you know, brown belt, and I'm you know, fighting these tournaments.
That must have sucked for him.
Yeah.
No kidding.
He's like, wow, my luck was not with me this morning.
Yeah.
I remember I talked to Joel before. I'm like, hey, this guy, like, it's not a very hard fight. What do you want me to do? He's like, are you kidding? He's like, this is Nogi Pan. You smash him. He's like, no mercy.
Sweet.
And I was like, okay, you got it.
Check.
Yeah. Check.
Sorry, buddy.
Yeah. Sorry, man.
That's a cool thing for that guy though, on, you know, have on the wall. Like, hey,
yeah, for sure. And I didn't injure him. You know, I didn't injure him.
Yeah, but still, like that's super cool, because there is something to be said for just showing up.
Yeah, and he didn't back out
You know?
like the other 15 people did.
Exactly.
And he's like, "Oh, cool, yeah, cool."
Did you get silver at Nogi Pants? Yeah, I did. Look at the guy who's standing next to me, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense
for sure."
Yeah,
No, for sure, and that was all good. And I gave him my respect. I felt a little bad, you know. I have compassion for him a little bit, but I was kind of like, you know, it is what it is, you know. And I appreciated him showing up and competing and all that. But, you know, won Nogi Pans, went to Nogi Europeans, won that. Honestly, don't remember all the tournaments, but I remember at the end, from that time period where I decided I was going to be the best, like literally from that moment, I didn't lose a match. All the rest of brown belt. And then I went 53-0.
53-0.
And then after I got back from Worlds, I remember I had this long-term girlfriend at the time, you know, nothing but positive things to say about her, but she ended up ending things with me. The year before, we kind of on and off. She ended things with me. It was it really troubled my mind. She ended things with me in 2021, like 6 days before the Worlds. It's kind of one of those deals. So I went there, and again, I have to take extreme ownership. I have to take 100%. It's always gonna be my fault. But I didn't feel that I was necessarily fully focused, and that was definitely part of the reason. Now again, that's on me, and I ended up losing that Worlds by an advantage, or no, a penalty point. This is in 2021, a penalty point to a guy that I'd put 15-0 on when I won Pans.
Oh, geez.
Or when I got second at Pans, because that was the year that I got second at Pans. I did medal at Worlds. And so from that moment, I was like, hey, I got up to that next year, you know, at the next Worlds, I had won Pans. She and I were back together. And then she said, hey, we really got to talk. And this is like 7 days before I left for the second time trying at Brown Belt Worlds. And I was like, well, this is my last chance. Pedro Hosh, he's a good friend of both of ours. He told me, he's like, hey, dude, this is your last chance. He's like, you have to win it this time. He's like, if you don't win it, he's like, I'm going to be really disappointed in you. And so I was like, no pressure, man. Like, I'll do my best. But I remember she asked me to talk, and I told her no. I was like, hey, I'm not going to be able to speak with you before I leave, just because this is kind of how it played out last time. I don't know if you want to break up with me again, but I'm not really willing to see you again right now. I'll connect with you when I get back.
Yeah.
So I won the Worlds, flew back on a Saturday, saw her Sunday, she broke up with me. Right. And I always say, like, good and bad run on parallel tracks, right? Because I had an all-time high, brown belt world champion, some goal I'd been pursuing for years.
Yes, sir.
Nobody to celebrate it with, in a way. That's kind of how it felt. I have my family, of course, but kind of did that whole thing. And then from there, I just said, okay, you know what? I'm just going to use this as fuel, right? Like, you can always use things for positive or negative. And I registered for the national championships, And then I went to nationals, and I remember I went there, and Joel was like, hey, dude, you got to do all the open divisions, and you got to do your weight division. Like, you're already a brown belt world champ. You're already a brown belt pan champ. It doesn't matter, right? And I kind of was like, okay, I'll put that in the back of my head. Like, it doesn't matter. He's like, no. Don't come back if you're not going to do the weight in the open, And I was like, okay. And so I went in and I registered as an ultra heavy because I was like, man, let's just do it. Let's go I don't want to worry about my weight.
What's the weight on ultra heavy?
There's no limit.
Okay, that is
that is the limit. There's no limit.
You said another weight class earlier.
Super
okay.
heavy is up to
222, correct?
222, and then the gi is 214.5. It's different. Gi and no gi.
I thought gi was higher than
gi is higher. So gi is up to 222,
and no gi is 214.
214, yeah.
Got it.
Or it might be 215. It's like 214.5 or 215.
215.
I think it's somewhere around there.
Doesn't matter.
Same, about the same. And so I ended up going to nationals, which is in Vegas. And at the time, Joao wasn't able to travel with me because he'd just traveled with me. And so it's just my dad and I going out there. And, I competed in my weight division in the gi. And then, a bunch of hours passed, and I really did not want to do the open division. And I remember one of my buddies was in the open division, and I kind of put him on. I was like, oh, if he and I match up, I'm just going to let him pass. I kind of wanted that mental out, right? And so I remember I was fighting, and I had one of the hardest matches I've ever had. I forget the guy's name, but he was just a spider guard player, like 6'6", just tying me up, and I got super tired. And he was up in the first minute of the match. He'd scored or got an advantage, and I was chasing his tail the whole time, and I ended up winning. But my hands were so gassed, and I had 4 or 5 more matches to win the open. And then the next day I had no gi, and that was another 8 matches. And so I got 10, 12 matches ahead of me, and I can't even move. And I remember I called Joao, and he's like, no, you need to do it. Tell that guy if you have a problem, he can talk with me when you come back. You're going to pass, And I was like, oh man, I don't know. And then I look over, and the guy that I thought was my buddy that was, going to easily pass the first round, because, it's brackets, he was top seeded like I was. I thought he would easily pass because I knew the guy that he was fighting. And the guy, no offense, but just is not very good, And that guy that I didn't think was very good beat him. And I was like, oh, now I have to fight. And so and so, which was a blessing, always, sure. It's a silver lining. And so I ended up going out there, and in that second match, I guillotined him in like 13 seconds in the gi, which is kind of a hard submission to catch in the gi.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, I might be able to do this. And then I fought a couple more times, and then my final was against this really good kid who I really admire. His name's Rui Alves. And I fought him as a blue belt in the world championship final as a blue belt when I won my middle heavy title as a blue belt in the worlds in the gi. And he's only a lapel guard player. At the time, I was more focused no gi because I just won the worlds in the gi, and I just transitioned right to no gi. But I said, you know what? If I'm going to throw my hat in at American Nationals, which is like the national championships for IBJJF, which is the International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation, I was like, I'll do the gi. And he's a strictly lapel guard player. Just, it's kind of a hard. It's a puzzle to untangle.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of those guys, it's very strategy based. It's very get up by a referee's call or a single point and then kind of stall the match out. And I remember, I went up to him before the match, and, and I'm a big proponent of not going up to the opponent before the match, because a lot of times I see that as fear. Like a lot of times people come up and they introduce themselves to me, I know that they're a little bit nervous, right? And because I've done the same thing when I was younger and didn't know to people I was nervous to fight or have a match against. And but we talked, and he was like, oh, let's do it again. Like, let's see the result this time. He's like, let's do the war, brother. And so it was very respectful.
That's cool.
Super cool. And I love opponents like that. They push me to be better, of course. And so I went out there, and he scored on me early. We had a scramble back and forth. And I remember, I think the score was tied up, and he tried leg locking me. And I remember thinking, like, I literally had this thought process in my mind. I was like, well, the way you're leg locking me, your leg is a little exposed. And if I just explode into it as hard as I can, I'm like, this is the open division too. So this is the all weights combined. And he was, 30 pounds lighter than me. I was like, what's going to happen to your knee, I wonder? And he was trying to blow my knee out, and that is what it is.
Yep.
And so I just exploded, and it sounded like a tree branch crack in his knee. And, we stopped. He kept trying to go, but his knee was moving. And I remember the medics came over. I remember they pulled his gi pant up, and they pulled his knee, and I mean, there was probably 6 inches of laxity. I mean, the shin just went out, And I remember him that year at the Pans tournament, he had let his foot break in a foot lock. So I know he's tough, right? Like I've let my legs break in tournaments when it happens, you know? Like,
You have?
I have, yeah. I'll tell that story too. But it can happen, but I wasn't expecting him. I think it was like people know it was like a calf slicer transition or something like that. And I remember his knee, boom. And when we reset, I asked him, I was like, hey, why don't we switch legs?
Wow.
That was like a respect thing. I was like, yeah, I don't want to injure your leg anymore, man. Let's just, because we were in a 50-50 entanglement, which is like kind of a leg scissor position. Mm-hmm. So we switched, and I ended up winning the match by points. But I could have, hurt him worse. But I had respect for him, right? And I didn't want to do that whole thing. So I ended up winning that, and then that felt really good. And that was kind of a big moment for me because I was like, oh, I can do this. Mm-hmm. And then I think at that point, I really started believing that I was the best in the world at brown belt because the stats are just undeniable. Like I was 1 super heavy worlds, 1 super heavy pans, double gold at American Nationals 3 weeks after. And the big thing too is a lot of guys, they're scared. If they just won worlds or pans, why would they go out to a tournament that doesn't have as much prestige and risk losing? I just didn't care. I just wanted to go out there and do my thing. So the next thing, Nogi shows up, and I remember I fought this kid named Calvin Tacey in the final of the open division. So I won my division pretty easy. Unfortunately, I guillotined that guy again. The same guy. Kind of felt bad. I remember I called Isaac, and I was like, dude, I fought this guy yesterday. I was just like, highlight reel him. I'm going to watch. He's like, just highlight reel him. I was like, all right, dude, I'll try. And so I ended up going out there, and I did kind of end up highlight reeling him. The video went viral. I ended up hitting like a jumping guillotine, and like he sat into it, and his jaw like looked like it came off, like a bah. And he's a great guy. I like the guy. I'm not going to mention my name, because I don't want to, be that guy. But he's a really cool guy. Just we had some hard fights. And I remember I fought this guy in the final who I'd fought as a blue belt. And, you kind of chase guys, right? Like you see guys at blue belt that maybe you lose or win, and then you fight him at purple belt. Like there was a guy that I lost to at blue belt that I smashed at purple. I mean, you just kind of go back and forth. You see the same names. Yeah. I remember he'd come up to me at the Nationals like a year or two prior. We were just talking. I said, man, I think I know you. He's like, yeah. He's like, we had a match. And I was like, oh man. I was like, was that at the, when was it? He's like, oh, it was at Worlds in 2017 or 2018. And I had won No U Worlds that year. And I was like, oh yeah, I think I fought you. And he's like, oh, it would be different though. And I was like, oh, that's cool, man. Like, I'm not saying it wouldn't be, man. Like, that was just kind of the vibe. It was like I felt like it was a little bit hostile. But I get it. He's a competitor. He wants to go hard and stuff. Like I respect it. But I played a little trick on him. I remember.
I was waiting for this.
Yeah, I played a little trick on him when. So first of all, the open division was kind of funny. There's a guy, I don't even remember his name, but in the warm up area, he was warming up and he hit me in the back of the head with his foot, which is fine. And I kind of looked at him and was like, dude, you're in my way. Move. And he was wearing a black belt ranked rash guard, and I was a brown belt. Oh, my bad, man. And again, that's the thing. Like, don't mistake meekness for weakness. Yeah. I'm praying. I was reading some scripture and doing some other stuff. I didn't want to interrupt that. I was on the phone in and off with Joao. He was giving me advice, my professor, and I told him, he's like, hey man, you're gonna smash him at black belt. Don't worry. Like, focus on the open division now. He's like, you already have 3 gold medals. Again, you're gonna set another record. I was the only American to ever quad gold. I was the first brown belt to ever quad gold at American Nationals. It got beat by another guy. Like, another guy did that the next year, but I was the first.
Wow.
And he's just, hey, focus. Brackets are made. And then I see that guy take his thing off and he has a brown belt ranked rash guard. And this is not Calvin. This is I don't remember this guy's name. But I remember praying and I was like, God, please put him as my first match. Please. And I ended up looking over we were in the bullpen. I looked over and it popped up Steffen and his name. And I thought it was him, but I looked him up on Instagram and I was like, oh, dude. You're cooked, and because he was much smarter than me and he'd hit me and everything, and I was very nice, but he'd been very rude, and so in the bullpen I just started making him uncomfortable and playing some psychological tricks on him or whatever. But when the match happened, I think I was in guard or something, and he was one of the first guys that started really talking trash to me in a match. It's happened now multiple times, but he was like, hey, stand up, wrestle me like a man, stand up. Ended up like the match was 45 seconds. I spun to his legs, I got him in like a pretty tight heel hook, and I submitted him quickly. And I let go, but I looked at him, I was like, are you done? He's like, yeah, I'm done. I was like, okay. And it was kind of one of those deals. Cause I was like, man, you're talking a lot. You're saying a lot of crazy things. Wow. But the end match, so I fought a couple buddies in the open bracket that I'd known that I had matches against, hard matches, but I went to the open division and I'd been focusing on my conditioning at that point. So I felt great. But I ended the match and I acted like cause I knew Calvin was watching me cause his bracket had run right before mine. It's just kind of a little funny story. And I got up and I went up to the ref and I was like, man, I can't even move, man. I was like, how's the longest I can have? He's like, oh, well, the longest you can have for the open finals, for any final, is 2 times the time of your match. So my matches at brown belt were 8 minutes and under BJJ, so I had 16 minutes of rest. I was like, man, is there any way I can have 20, please? I was like, I can't even move. And I hear Calvin kind of looking at me and everything. I see him looking at me. And I was like, oh, this dude doesn't even know. And so I was like, but I asked him, I said, when can I go? I said, has my opponent had rest? He's like, oh yeah, he's been resting for 30 or 45 minutes waiting for you whenever you want to go. So you have 0 to 16 minutes to go. And I was like, okay, I need the full 20. He's like, dude, you don't have 20. I was like, okay, fine, 16. And I sat there, I got a swig of water, and I walked over there and said, I'm ready.
Yes.
He's
Let's
like,
go.
He's like, right now? I was like, yeah, right now. I said, you ready, bro? I looked at Colin, I was like, you ready, man? You know? And so, because I remember what he said, and I don't react a lot, but I view everything. You know, it's kind of something that I, like, again, just shut up.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I kind of observe everything and kind of see where things are. And I remember I felt that he disrespected me a little bit. You know, no disrespect to him, but I just felt that he'd snubbed his nose at me a little bit.
He did.
He did, you know, and I wanted to get that one back. And so I'd already beat him one time by points or something, and I knew that was in his head. So I was like, oh, now I'm going to have to submit you, you know? And so I went out there and I submitted him, you know, pretty quick. I submitted him with another leg lock, but and then I got up and I was like 4, because it was like, I was, you know, quad goal at the national championships, and then he like stood up and kind of chest bumped me and yelled at me like 4, and I looked at him like, what are you doing, bro?
Oh my God.
But it was all good. I mean, I shook his hand at the end. I mean, it was no disrespect.
Yeah.
But it was just like, I thought it was a little funny, like the little psychological things you can do and the little gamesmanship. Like Andy Rovat is one of my wrestling mentors. He went up, he told me, this is just another thing for him. He told me when he was in Russia years ago, he was wrestling Steve Mako. You know, and Mako's you know who Steve Mako is? He's an animal.
Yeah.
National champion, like all this. And Steve Mako is 280 and he's like 180. And Andy went up to him, they were fighting in some bracket, and Andy went up to him and said, oh man, good to see you. Gave him a hug and wrapped his arms around him. He's like, oh, I can wrap you. And apparently Steve flipped out. I was like, you're grabbing me before the match. And so like you can do those small little, you know, psychological things before they can kind of help sometimes. But I just wanted him to think that I was going to take obviously the full rest time and then kind of come out there. But then, you know, after that, I competed at every spot I could, you know, went to Europe, won that. And then, you know, I kind of culminated my brown belt career at the Nogi World Championships in December of 22. And then won my weight division, all submissions. I think one of the first brown belts I won in Nogi, I won Europeans, Pans, and Worlds with 100% submission rate. You know.
That's unreal.
Thanks, man. Yeah. Thank you. Didn't win all the open divisions by 100% submission rate, but all my weight brackets, 100% submission rates. And they were quick too. I think I had no match at brown belt Nogi in my weight bracket go over 2 minutes. 2 or 3 minutes.
So what is that doing for your just confidence and momentum?
Huge.
Yep.
Huge. You know, a lot of momentum, a lot of confidence.
Without getting arrogant and cocky.
Yes.
I mean, it's just got to be fueling.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
And I kind of got that feel like, hey, everybody's going to get it. You know, and I kind of went to the Worlds with a little chip on my shoulder, like, hey, I'm going to win the weight and the open because I've been doing this at every tournament. It just got off of Nogi Europeans. But the only guy that I hadn't faced at the time at brown belt was Luke Griffith, who people don't know now, Luke is a silver medalist at ADCC, submission wins over Heisem, submission wins over Kainan Duarte.
How is he a brown belt?
I don't know. I mean, that's
Come on.
that's the new wave thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Respect to those guys, but I think it's a little, they're holding him back. But another thing too, I do see John kind of philosophy there because he doesn't really care about the belts. Like,
Okay, I
you know,
respect
he
that.
has some guys that are like college wrestlers or high level wrestlers and they're blue belts or purple belts. And they're like, look at, for instance, Michael Pixley, super high level wrestler. Maybe his jiu-jitsu isn't black belt yet, but he's able to beat a lot of black belts because he can rely on his wrestling, and he has some. He submitted Marigali. How can you say he's not a black belt, right? There may be some technical things that could be changed up. I don't know. I've never trained with him or fought him. I have a lot of respect for the Pedigo guys. I like all those guys. Fought Jacob Couch at purple belt. That was a good match. Beat him, but there's some guys that. What was I saying about? I lost my train of thought a little bit. Oh, Luke.
Yeah,
Luke. I think Danaher isn't really worried about IBJJF or isn't really worried about belts.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, my guys kill everybody.
It's a long game for him.
It's a long game for him. And so I don't think he's really, and I have a ton of respect for the new wave guys too. I mean, I like all those guys. I fought.
Definitely not meaning anything.
No, I know you're not.
against him. I'm just like, how is it?
For sure.
It's sort of one
It's
of those
overdue.
things where you're like, bro.
It's overdue for sure. And Luke that year had gone, I think he'd had one loss to Jacob Couch in the Pans, and then he had one loss to Mason Fowler. But outside of that, he had like 70 matches, 70 submissions, I think. outside of that. And then that year at Worlds, I submitted everybody in my weight bracket. I submitted my final by pressure. And then he had submitted everybody in his weight bracket. And then he submitted everybody in the open division as well. And so I remember he fought Kenta Iwamoto, who's a 2-time trials champion, one of the top guys at B team. And I remember I was talking to Cyborg, because Pedro and Cyborg were kind of, Cyborg Abreu, obviously legend, open class champ at ADCC, and 8-time world. I mean, he's done everything. But I talked to him, I said, hey, who do you think I'm going to fight in the final? So you think I'm going to fight Kenta, or you think, because I was already in the final, or you think I'm going to fight Luke? He said, dude, you're going to fight Luke. He's like, you need to be careful, And I was like, okay. And I looked over, and I mean, it was like a 45-second match with Kenta. I mean, he just swallowed him up. He took his back with something silly and strangled him. And I was like, oof, okay, now I have Luke Griffith in the final. And I went up to Pedro, I was like, hey, how do you think I'm going to do on this? He's like, oh man, you got it. You're going to be good. And then he told me after, he's like, bro, I was very nervous for you. I told that story, he's like, bro, I was very nervous. Because Luke is very good, and he's 6'6", 260, maybe 240 at the time, I don't know. He just submits everybody. And I remember the match started, and I was looking over at him, and I was like, this dude's big. I was like, but anybody can be beaten,
yes, sir.
Went out there, scored early. The match was a good pace. Everybody was watching me. I was on the camera and everything. And then, it was like the last minute and 30 seconds of the match. And I remember I started passing his guard, and I was like, oh, I'm going to pass his guard. I was up 4-0. So I could have just held on. But, I wanted to go. I kind of passed. He turtled, and I'm on his back. And I remember locking my hands. And I remember him rolling. And I was like, oh, I can follow him. And I kind of tried to crab ride him. Have you seen the match?
No.
I tried to crab ride him, which is kind of like me like this underneath him with my hands locked.
I might have.
And he sat out, and I was like, oh, this isn't good. And then he immediately mounted me. And he mounted me with 2 overhooks, which is hard to get out. Oh. And I remember being like, literally through my mind, I haven't really told this story, but I was like, in my mind, I was like, I can't lose this match. I'm going to die to not lose this match. And then I thought, I can't finish my last match at brown belt, because I knew I was getting my black belt on the 17th, which is, so I can't lose this match. So I ended up just freaking out. I mean, I gave everything just to get to a turtle. He immediately throws hooks in on me, body triangles me, and pops my ribs. Right? And I remember looking over, and I was like, well, this guy's not that skilled in the IBJJF rule set. You get no points for body triangle. And I looked over, and it was 1 advantage for him, 4-0 for me. And I was like, so I'm winning. And then boom, he just hits my face. Boom. He's cross-facing me. And I'm trying to ride the clock now. He's so big. My ribs are all messed up. He ends up taking my elbow like all the way behind my ear. I feel my ribs just on the side. And he ended up face crank, like he power halved me so hard that one of the cornerside refs called for a DQ because he was neck cranking me so hard. But my nose, I'm not kidding, like touched my belly button. And I was like kind of trying to stand up. And I remember, I think I almost went out for a second because I felt like I kind of woke up.
Oh, that pressure?
Yeah, that pressure. And I remember I exhaled and I couldn't breathe back in. I went like, and I started panicking. And I looked over and I kind of peeled his fingers back, and I looked under my armpit because I was literally looking through here. My whole head was turned. And I was like, well, if I pass out, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
I was like, if he breaks my arm or shoulder, like I'll be fine. And I saw like 25 seconds. And I was like, oh, like a brown belt open class world title, which is everything for me, in 25 seconds. Anybody can do anything again for 25 seconds. Yeah. And so I looked over and I just started controlling his feet. Because like I know he knows now he has to score. And so I was just taking all that abuse on the face, and he's like punching my face under my chin. And I'm just eating and at the end, I mean, he had a full strangle locked in. I was just eating it. He's cranking, I'm feeling my jaws pop and my neck crack and everything. And I'm holding here. And then when the time called off, like he started getting, I was like, get off me, And then I got up and I was like, yeah. And I was so tired. Yeah, I had pushed so hard that everything was like really bright and white. That feeling?
Oh, dude. You're riding the magic carpet.
Yeah, I was riding the magic carpet hard.
When it's bright light, it's
real
like,
bright. Yeah,
wah.
And then I remember I looked at my dad, and my dad was freaking out, and we had that connection, he's like, look at me, yeah. And I got up and I just remember going like this, and I was like, I just yelled, I was like, I want it more, Yes. And that was just a great moment for me, that was like one of my best life moments, I think. Just having that feeling of like, I did more, I pushed more, finished brown belt undefeated that second year. And from there, I talked to Pedro, and he was like, man, he told me after, I was very nervous for you. I ended up coming back and got my black belt, December 17th, 2022.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So can we readdress breaking of your legs?
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know. I kind of think a lot of times, like, obviously, like some injuries, like it depends on what you're willing to give up, right? Mm-hmm. So for my thing is like if you're a jiu-jitsu guy and you want to say that you're going to be a world-class competitor, and you're going to tap because it's uncomfortable. You're going to tap because something's popping or breaking. Now, I fully agree. Like if I'm in training, I tap all the time. I train. This has been a big thing for me at black belt too. I train just now. I only train to get better. if I lose, like if you and I were to train and you were in one of my sessions, you would tap me multiple times. You might be like, oh no, well, it's because I'm putting myself in positions to get tapped multiple times. I'm working out of the worst spots. Like I really train just to get better. So people catch me in footlocks, I tap all the time. But in a tournament, it's a little different. And I fought this guy, probably the worst break I've had is I fought this guy called Thomas Bratcher on Who's Number One. Who's Number One's a big stage, and
Yes, sir.
again, I had, Laurent's fly out. One of my good friends, Perry, flew out. My dad was out there with me. I'm like, man, I'm not going to let another grown man submit me in front of my dad, that's kind of my thing. I don't know, just.
No, I love it.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not. I love it.
And there was a little build up too, because like when I fought in the Europeans, I went out with some friends after from GF team, and there was like a little bar thing. He threw a drink on me. There was like a whole deal. He might not even remember it. And again, I don't have any disrespect towards the guy, but when they offered me the fight, I would jump at the chance. I would love to handle it there, and there was.
That's cool. That's the way to do it.
I'm not a talker or anything. I never said, even when he threw the drink, I was like, all right, all good, man, it is what it was, and there was like a little vibe or whatever, but also I'm in a foreign country with a flight in like 5 hours. And
Yeah, you're being smart.
I was being smart, and I don't know if it was completely directed just at me, but it doesn't matter. Like,
Doesn't matter.
Got on me.
You made the right decision,
Yeah.
by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate
Flight.
it. Yeah.
Let's just go back to the whole foreign country part.
Yes. 100%.
Locked up abroad is not a cool thing.
Not a cool thing.
And other countries can
Hold you for a while.
they can hold you as long as they want for whatever they want, especially if they know that you're an athlete.
Oh yeah. And so I was like,
you
I'm
made
good.
the smart
Yeah.
decision.
So I ended up fighting him.
It's called humility.
Yeah, exactly.
Which you have a lot of.
Thank you. And I ended up seeing him for the weigh-ins, and I kind of had a couple things I was going to say if he said anything, but he was very respectful. If he didn't remember me, maybe, or I don't know. But I remember he weighed in. It was a no weight limit fight, so I was just pounding food and going crazy before. And I remember I weighed in like 230, just.
You at 230?
Yeah, me at 230. And I'm going to be there soon. Again, don't worry. I'll be there soon again. But I remember I think I weighed in at 227.5 or something like that. And he weighed in at like 217, a little lighter. And I was like, dude, you're gonna get some work tomorrow. And I remember doing the event. Awesome Flow runs it really well. Took him down pretty quick. Was on top. We ended up having an exchange. I think I jumped for a submission, ended up on bottom. And he ended up, he got his black belt under Brauilo Estima. And obviously, have you heard of the Estima lock?
I'd have to see it. I'm
Basically,
really bad
yeah.
with those.
So the foot is kind of like center line in your chest, and you basically do a rear naked choke grip on the foot, and then you just lift, right? And it kind of causes the foot to invert, And I remember I was there, and I was kind of like, man, like Joao's cranked these on me forever. Like I should be fine. And he caught me in a weird angle. And in training, most of the time, people catch it, they'll go hard, but he went full belly down, and I just felt it completely shredding. I mean, I thought at one point, like when he finished it, I looked down to check if it was on. Because I saw my big toe completely rotated 180. And I was like, hey, because I thought I might have like a tib fib break where my foot was actually hanging, and then they wouldn't let me continue. That was kind of my like concern. But I went into that match, like another thing too is like the mindset wise, not that I'm the most tough, but I went into the match knowing that I was not going to submit. Like obviously if it's a strangle or something, potentially, because you got me dead to rights. You passed my guard. You dominated me in positions, and you apply a great submission. That's respect, right? But like if you just catch me in something, it wasn't even in my thought. It was more like mitigating damage. And so I looked down. I kind of rolled my ankle like this, and I was like, oh, it's moving, And I was like, I don't know how. I knew it was really, really bad, but my face stayed completely. My dad was 40, 50 feet away, and he was like, dude, I heard it popping. He said it sounded like tree branches cracking and jeans ripping. And like it shredded every ligament in my foot, fractured a couple bones, like everything. And like my foot was like, I mean, it was bad. And I'll show you some pictures, but after I ended up submitting him with a rear strangle a couple minutes later. And when I went to lock the triangle on the back, I grabbed my foot and it was like grabbing jelly. Like I grabbed it and it just moved like maybe 45 more degrees than it would have normally. And I was like, oh, that's not good. And so won the match. I didn't feel anything. I walked backstage and I like started feeling like I might pass out, and I started feeling hit me. And my doctor buddy Steve Hong was an amazing guy. I was like, hey doc, he flew out to come watch me. I said, come to the back. I went out to get him. He walks to the back and he grabs his. He's like, no, you're good. He's like, oh yeah, you're real messed up, bro. And so he wrapped me with some ice. Like that should be good. But I mean, it swelled up like a golf ball. But I'm such a psycho. I came back. I like trained the next day. I drove back all night and came back and lifted in the morning and all this. I was trying to train, but then I got these like kind of scary, like varicose looking veins things from the bottom of my foot all the way up to my kneecap. and my whole foot turned purple. And then it started stretching my ankle skin so bad, the swelling, that my skin started breaking.
Compartmental syndrome?
But I don't know, potentially. I hadn't even heard of that. But it was so bad that I started draining it. So one day I was like, I went to the store and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna get some needles and drain it. So I threw in. I had the first night I drank 27 mLs out of my ankle joint.
Bro, I'm not 100%, but you are extremely lucky. My dad had compartmental syndrome in his leg. He almost lost his leg.
Really?
They had to fillet both sides of his calf open because of damage, and like his skin got tight. It ripped. You are very blessed.
I think 100%. And everybody, like, whenever I tell anybody about the injury, they're always like, hey, that sounds really bad. But then when I show them the pictures, which I'll show you, after, they believe it, if that makes sense. Because, like, my toes were so swollen that you couldn't even really make out the definition. They were all black and purple. And it went all the way to, like, my butt cheeks. Like, that whole leg was completely bruised and swollen. But I started draining it. And it took about six to 8 months before. My foot still is not the same. It's just loose now, which just is what it is. I didn't have surgery or anything. I did the whole MRI thing, and they're like, you should be off your foot for 6 months, 4 months, and I was like, I'll be fine. So that was pretty rough to handle, but I kept training, kept doing my thing. That was kind of the story of how I
Dude, that's gnarly.
I can't wait to see the pictures.
I know.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly.
Lucas, what questions do you have for Steffen? I know we're going to keep talking about, we're going to transition to business.
Yeah, of course.
Definitely want to talk about what you're doing with the Grappling Institute. What questions do you have?
Yeah, so you mentioned Chief Randy.
Yeah.
Great dude. You guys
Love
have a show
Randy.
that you do
Patriot
together.
Point show, yeah.
Yeah, which I've gotten to see some of the reels and stuff that y'all put out, which is really cool. Randy's a super cool guy. How did you two, you said you met through jiu-jitsu. How did you two get connected?
Yeah, for sure. It's just kind of a funny story. So, I enjoy, I feel like jiu-jitsu, a lot of the guys that are in jiu-jitsu a lot of them are military, law enforcement, prior military, that type of deal. And so one of the really good guys that I know, and he and I have been doing this for a while now, a year or two. I've known him for 4 or 5 years. His name's Jeff Edison. He was a cop in Duncanville for 30 years. Taught with Chris Kyle. Taught with Paul Hall, which is one of the former Delta guys in Mogadishu and all that.
Yep.
And then currently teaches with Lamb from Ronin Tactics.
Yeah.
And he was a SWAT trainer. He was a sniper on the SWAT team and all this. Just real squared away guy. And is like kind of how I am about jiu-jitsu. Is I think nerd has kind of a negative connotation, but I don't think it does.
I don't think it does.
I don't think it does, but like I'm a huge jiu-jitsu nerd, so I freak out on like the little things and how can I make a drilling system better? How could I, fine tune these small things? That's kind of what I get lost in. I saw something recently that, a lot of people want to do the hard work. They want to go in the gym. Oh, I lifted this weight or I trained X amount of rounds, but are you doing tape study on this specific technique and why it didn't work in these scenarios and all? Like nobody does the extra work outside. And Jeff does, but he does it with firearms. Yeah, so he's a firearms trainer. He owns his own company called Realistic Defense. And I mean, man, when you're talking with him, you guys would
I can't wait to
geek
meet
out.
him. Like
yeah,
I want
you guys would geek out. I'm like, I talked to him because I think he was telling me for like I'm not a big long distance guy. I know you are, but he was telling me, he's like, with my scopes or with my optics, he's like, 50 yards, you hold over at 200, or he was telling me some stuff. He's like, but mine's 194.3 yards on my scope, and I'm using this grain. He hand loads his own stuff. I mean, he's just the biggest nerd with all that stuff, and he's trained me up with a lot of the firearms. So I shoot with him every week. We'll hit my gym, and I'll give him a 2-hour private, sometimes more, and then we'll drive right out to the range, and he'll give me the same on the range. So it's been
sounds like a good trade.
Yeah, awesome knowledge transfer, and I'm a big believer in that. And like if you're skilled in something and I'm skilled in something, let's do a trade. And
why would we not want to feed into each other?
Exactly, and you just elevate it. Rising tide lifts all boats. And so I was at the range. And, I go out to ETTS, and Patrick, who owns the range, was talking. He knows me. He knows I do jiu-jitsu. He's really good friends with Jeff. Jeff's been teaching there for a number of years. And they're like, oh, hey, there's this Navy SEAL. It's going to come out to the Bay and meet you guys. He's here teaching a course. And I was like, super cool. I mean, I'm fans of all you. I think you guys are awesome. All the SEALs I met, I'm pretty close to the number of them. Andrew Arbito's another one of my good friends. Love Bito.
Bito.
Love Bito.
Crazy. I love him.
I love Bito. Yeah, I got so many stories of that dude. Just, I haven't even known him for a crazy long time, but he's just such a cool guy. It's so fun when we hang out. What was I going to say? But Randy shows up and he pulls up in this huge lifted, 7.3 liter, whatever truck.
Diesel, yeah.
Yeah, diesel truck or whatever. Hops out and super jacked. And I look at him, he's got couple knives here, couple knives here. You know, I'm like, oh, this guy's pretty, pretty cool.
He's either the deal or he's a douchebag.
Yes.
It's going to be one or the other.
Yes. And he's, I was a CEO, I was this, I was that. And I was like, oh, I do jiu-jitsu. He's like, oh, cool, man, I'm a black belt. He's like, me too. And, I still look pretty young, and I don't think he believed me. And we kind of talked about it later. He's like, oh, I thought you were, everybody says they're a black belt, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, where do you train? I was like, I train at Formigas. I was like, oh, I've trained at Formigas. Like, ask about me at Formigas. I said, can I get your number? So he gave me it's kind of funny. He gave me his business line, not his personal line. So when I texted him, it popped up as a green message, and I get it, and then like 2 days later, I get a text because I said, hey, if you would ever like to, I'd love to learn, because Randy created the hand-to-hand combat system for the Navy SEALs. Was in the teams for like 22 years. It was a chief. He was a Naval Special Warfare SEAL of the Year.
Yeah.
So he's an awesome guy.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten to know him more, great man of God. He's an amazing guy. But I didn't know anything about him at the time. But I just knew he knew some combative stuff. And like, again, I'm a student. I want to learn everything I can. So I told him, I said, hey, if you would ever like to learn some jiu-jitsu, I'm not, I know you're a black belt. If you want to learn some more of the competition stuff or would love to train, let me know. And he hit me up like 2 days later. I get a text from a random number. He's like, oh, hey, this is Randy. He's like, I asked about you at Formigas. He's like, yeah, would love to train with you. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm sure Formiga put in a good word for me. So he kind of told me, he vetted me, and figured I was true to what I was saying. So we started doing the same thing. I meet up with him once a week. He recently had a hip replacement, so we haven't met up, and I still see him weekly and do business and stuff, but we haven't been able to train. I think we're going to start in the next couple of weeks. I met him there, and then we started training, and just started doing their own show together. And then he brought me onto his company, American Warrior Combatives. Nice. So we're kind of focused on, he does a lot of privates with people, individual one-on-one, but we're kind of trying to break into the corporate side of things, for active shooter, medical training, because Randy was a Special Forces combat medic. Yep. And so we can kind of do, everything. It's kind of a boutique service. So we're just kind of starting out with all that, but, super blessed to have these people in my life that are like mentors to me. And again, I think that the only reason I have that is just because, again, my faith for one, and just my willingness to put myself out there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Does he mention you in the book? That's what I want to know.
I think the book was already written. Yeah. He's coming out with a book coming up. Awesome. I think right now, it was supposed to be released, but he has to send it into Naval Special Warfare
to get approved.
To get approved and stuff. So it's in the process of that right now. But it's an awesome book, and he's so humble, man. He doesn't really mention any of the stuff he's done. It's more of a mindset book. Yeah. Because he went through BUD/S, I think 4 times.
That's crazy.
Got injury rolled a couple times, had some other stuff go on, but he had such a long pipeline to become. He was so determined. Yeah. He's such a force of nature, man. Like when you talk to him, he's like, I'm going to do this. I'm like, I know. Yeah. I have no doubt you're going to do it.
No doubt.
No doubt you're going to do it.
That's cool. What's been your path to, so school, you got your degree, you have your job, you have business, you're helping your family with the different businesses, competing all the time. What brought you to starting and opening the Grappling Institute? And
for sure.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I'm super passionate about this. So like I said, Laurence Marin is my business partner for that. I met him when I was a blue belt. I always have this story that Marcus took me to Fortis MMA at the time, which where Laurence was kind of teaching at and training at. And a couple things. I didn't know this about Laurence at the time, but I respect everybody that's high level. I respect everybody, but I especially respect guys that are high level. But there's a newfound level of respect when I find out that, let's say they're strong in their faith, or they are very educated, or they do something, they're excellent outside of something in the sport. Because I feel like a lot of the times guys are good at jiu-jitsu, and you look at their personal life, it's in shambles, or they're not able to pay their rent, but they're a high-level black belt. It's like, man, you got to be squared away in other areas of your life.
Amen.
And so Laurence, when I met him, I was a blue belt at the time. I thought I was pretty good. I was training with everybody and doing well. And he was like 41, maybe. He's 49 now. I've known him 8 or 9 years now. And he wrapped me up. I remember it was like my big toe touched my forehead or something. He just bent me like a lawn chair. And I always joke about that. He always say he didn't, but he definitely did. He and I were like the same size at the time and stuff. And he was just putting a whooping on me. But he and I got very close. He's a stud. He works a corporate job, makes a bunch of money. He won't let me say that, but he's just super squared away. Got his master's degree from the University of Chicago. His wife is an attorney that went to the University of Chicago. So they're just badass.
They're driven people that are pursuing the most out of life.
Yes. And Laurence he's won Master Worlds like a bunch of times. Wow. As like a side thing, he's got 3 daughters. He's
got a family, business, and
it's like he's a coach. He's a soccer coach for his. He does everything.
It's like when I did when we did our podcast episode with Formiga, talking about he has the trifecta, right? World champion, successful gym, and a good marriage and family. Yes. It's so rare.
It's so rare.
But it shouldn't be rare.
I agree.
It doesn't have to be rare.
I totally agree.
If you make the choice to be intentional,
Yep.
you can achieve excellence in all those things in life.
Exactly.
And so this is what this guy has done.
This is what he's done.
And so you're drawn to him from
Super drawn to him. I want to be closer to him.
like a mentorship.
100%. He kind of is like an uncle or older brother to me. That was kind of the vibe. And then, you know, as I started getting higher level and doing more of these super fights and stuff, I needed somebody that was close enough in my size and that was consistent. Because my problem was everybody my age, none of them are consistent. So they'll say, hey, I want to be a world champion. Hey, I want to be high level. And they show up for a month and then they stop. And I need somebody that was consistent with me. And also, you know, my schedule's kind of crazy. And so I started really getting close with him, especially before I did the Who's Number One. I was like, oh, this guy's different. Because I would hit him up at 8:30. Hey, man, you got any time to drill tonight? Because I got that tournament in a month, or I got this super fight in a couple weeks. And he again, granted, this whole time he's also teaching every single day a 6 to 7 a.m. class before his work at Fortis, right? And so he would text me like, yeah, meet me at 10 or meet me at 10:30. We'll drill till midnight.
What a great human.
Yeah, and I was like, but dude, you wake up at 5:30, 5:15. Oh no, it's fine, man. You got your fight coming up, but that's important. Let's meet. And so he would just meet with me every night, open up the gym, drill with me. And it was like, oh, hey, not only are we going to drill, but I also watched tape study on this guy today while I was at work. And I made these notes for you on how to get better.
Dude, my old MMA coaches used to do that. Now, I did not fight MMA even close to the level at which you're competing, but as an amateur fighter, I just remember my coaches would do the same thing. I would text Zach or Jake or Andy or Joe and those guys, and it would be like 10 o'clock at night where I'm getting back from the shooting range because I'm still in the teams training for my first fight. And I'd be like, hey, you know, I missed class. And Zach would be like, I'm on my way up there.
Yep.
And we would train from 11 o'clock until 1 a.m. And he would be like, it's when you find a coach / friend like that, there's nothing like that.
You got to hold on to him, man.
Yeah. Jake Underwood is still like that for me. Like, cause he knows I'm kind of going through some health issues right now or whatever. And we were talking about different stuff. And he was just like just listing off all these things. And I'm just like,
yeah, but Roz is that guy for me, man. I mean, I genuinely love this guy, man. I mean, he's been such a good mentor. And like when I need advice, I go to him, and it's cool because he gets the jiu-jitsu thing, but he also gets that I want to be excellent at other things. He also, you know, hey man, how's this going to be for your career? How's this going to be for, you know, years in the future? How's your job going? He's always keeping me accountable, and just been an awesome guy, man. We connect on so many levels. And so I ended up teaching at Fortis MMA for about almost the last year, taught a bunch of high-level MMA fighters over there, got to do that whole thing. But I always wanted to, you know, do my own thing eventually. And, you know, Laurent's approached me, I guess, probably about a year ago and said, hey, do you want to do a gym at some point? You're like, I've been teaching for a while over here. You know, I have money for it. I know you have some money saved up that you could throw at it. You know, we could really do this thing. Talked to Joao. He supported me. And I was like, yeah, man, let's do it. And so we just wanted to find a location for it. And so we've kind of been looking around and kind of keeping things very, I had even some close friends like, man, you didn't tell me. I'm like, well, that was the whole thing. Because I don't want to, you know, I hate to speak about things before they've happened.
it's smart.
And another thing too is, you know, our gym is close proximity to Fortis. You know, we're not trying to, you know, create any drama.
Out of respect, yeah.
Of course, you know, and there's always gonna be politics and drama. You know, it's just, that's what a community is. There's always gonna be some of that. But we wanted to keep things as non-political, as non-dramatic as possible, and just do a calm exit when the time was right. And so we ended up finding a facility. It's really close to the, you know, I was telling you guys, it's close to the JFK assassination where that happened, really close to the Fed building, really close to the courthouse. It's in downtown Dallas. The address is 800 Main Street. So it's kind of that historic downtown area. It's really cool because there's like security and cops all over the streets, and there's no homeless. It's like one of the few areas in downtown where it feels like you're in like a modern city downtown. Like some of downtown is pretty grungy, you know, and it doesn't feel as safe, and, you know, but this area feels really safe. You got a badge to scan into the building. And when Laurent and I first checked it out, he's like, yeah, I found this online. Let's go check it out. We walk upstairs, and it was like walking into paradise. The building is 15 floors. 14 floors down is just parking for the American Bank of America building. The 15th floor is the Old Texas Club, and that's where it's at. So the Old Texas Club was like it was like a fitness facility for kind of like the wealthy in Dallas. Mm-hmm. And then it got shut down, you know, in the 90s or early 2000s. And then this guy named Fess Irvin, who now runs it and owns it, he played professionally at LSU. This is a little bit of his background. He played professionally. He played at LSU in college. Was an All-American, really high-level basketball. Went international, played in Russia, Greece, all through Europe, through China. Like did a bunch of stuff. Came back as a coach, coaching high-level guys. Mark Cuban contacts him, flies him to Dallas, moves him and his family to Dallas, and he ends up owning this facility. So, you know, while I'm in there, man, Joel Embiid is in there. You know, Shackle popped through. Like, he's like big stars. And people don't believe me. I'm like, you know.
Also big human beings.
Big humans.
Like some of the biggest
humans
on
I've
the
seen.
planet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like there's all these kids that are popping in. I'm like, how old are you? Like, oh, I'm 16. I'm like, what's up, dude? You know, it's all these like going to be top round, you know, NBA draft picks. And So we walked into the building, and we were originally looking at a space that was 800 square feet. And we thought, well, this is a good spot to start at. And, you know, we ordered all the equipment and everything. We're waiting for it to get shipped here. And there was a delay. Again, always look for the silver lining. There was a delay in the shipment process. Laurens and I, we went to the gym, and we're like, oh, let's measure the room. And we're looking next door, and we're like, well, there's this huge, with 40-foot ceilings, AstroTurf area, 2,500 square feet. Do you think we could afford this maybe? Because we started looking at the mats, and we're like, well, we ordered a lot of mats. So we're going to need to expand quick. And then we started putting some feelers out, and a lot of people wanted to train with us. And I mean, the gym's been open less than a week now, you know, but
I hate that I missed the grand opening.
all good, man. You're welcome anytime.
I know.
You're welcome anytime.
I was bummed I missed that.
All good.
Super proud of
The
you.
grand openings whenever you come by. You know, come check it out. I'll show you around. But we kind of contacted Fess, and he ended up working out a deal with us. And so now we're in that 2,500 square foot space. Wow. You know, I mean, it's beautiful, man. White mats, you know, like probably 1,500 square feet of mat space, all the cardio machines, ski ergs, assault bikes, air runners. And that's just in our little space, right? And then we have access to the whole space. So the whole space, if you do like a loop, it's one circle. As you pass our small spot, again, there's on the 15th floor. Pass out, you go take a right. There's a stairwell. You go upstairs, 1/8 mile track. You look over, Olympic-sized swimming pool. It's in another room. It's on the 15th floor. They have a swimming pool on the 15th floor. You walk downstairs, keep going around a loop. It's like 3 racquetball courts. You're going to be turning to pickleball courts.
Nice.
Keep going straight, full size basketball court. You know, like one that you'd see in a college or something. You go a little further.
That's why Shaq is showing up with his kids.
Yeah. You go a little further, and there's a 25 to 3,000 square foot Pilates room. You go around another curve, full weight room, right? Then you go around another turn, skyline view of Dallas, and another full weight room. So there's 2 full weight rooms. I mean, I'm talking like 15 rogue squat racks with all the equipment. You go past that, there's another full room that has a skyline view of Dallas and with all the cardio machines you'd ever want. You know, he's opened up there's like a small little kitchenette where he's gonna have a smoothie bar with supplements and all this. I mean, it is really like a one-stop shop. Like, I'm actually moving to downtown Dallas because my whole goal is wake up in the morning, get my training in, go do some work on my computer, come back. Oh, I didn't mention, go downstairs. You got the sauna, the jacuzzi, the cold plunge, the 100+ lockers, the 100-inch TVs with the leather couches downstairs. I mean, it's nuts. It's like 3.5 stories in one floor with every amenity you could ever imagine. And Fess hasn't really been focused on what was the word? He hasn't been focused on like keeping some of the facilities like up to date. So some of the stuff like with the jacuzzi, I don't think it's up to code yet. So we're working on that. But once we get everything up and running, I mean, you can go there and do everything. You can go there and you can train, you can lift, you can do, they're going to have a full recovery area in there. Wow. And so it's just going to be, I mean, like I was talking, so Joao Gabriel, my professor, he came, he goes to me, he's like, bro, he's like, you don't need to leave.
Yeah.
He's like, you can live here. He's like, find a bed and just stay here all day. He's like, you have everything here. You know, it's like I'm on the 15th floor, got great Wi-Fi and got like anything I could ever, like I legitimately, like I'll spend hours out lifting, meet up, have somebody to drill. You know, I taught there tonight before I came here. But it feels really peaceful, man. And especially coming from some of the other training environments that I was in before, it's really clean. You know, we're just really focused on creating like and another big thing too is Laurens and I, we connected on the culture that we want to create. Cause I think that's a huge thing. The professor sets the culture for the gym.
Yes.
And, you know, like I said, with Machado, it wasn't the best culture, you know, for me. And I've been in some other gyms where it just hasn't been a great culture. Thankfully, I've been with Joao the last few years. So, you know, he switched teams a couple times just from what he needed to do. And it was never a question. He even asked me, he's like, where do you think we should go? You know, it's kind of one of those, he's like, oh, I'll go wherever you're at, man, I'll go. Yeah. And so I kind of attached myself to his bandwagon, and that's been great for me. But Laurens and I want to create an environment. I mean, we literally made a deal that if we're in the hole for the whole cost of the rent and the insurance and marketing, whatever, we'll keep it open for 2 years or more, being in the hole with 100% of what we're spending on it. Just because, again, we both work outside jobs, we can support that. Yeah. You know, and that's a big thing too. We're not needing students. We want students. We want to help spread the passion and the love for jiu-jitsu. I think jiu-jitsu is so important, you know, and for what it can offer people for mental health, for, you know, I mean, we've all had friends, you know, that, you know, killed themselves and certain things. I recently had a good friend of mine, a good friend of Randy and I's that took his life. And, you know, I was teaching his son jiu-jitsu, and that kind of hit close to home. But I think I'm not that jiu-jitsu is going to always save you, but I just think that it's not jiu-jitsu. It's the people you're around. Yeah. It's, you know, you step on the mats and you got JP, you look over, you got Formiga, look to your right, you got Randy. I mean, those are solid men of God, and they're right there. I could come up to you and say, hey man, can you pray for me? Or, hey, you know, I got something I'm dealing with right now. I want to take a little weight off my shoulders. Can I share that with you? And I know you're going to say yes. Yeah. What other environment can you be like? What other environment can you find that outside of church? It's really hard. Yeah. At least in my experience, it has been. And then, you know, like one of my really good friends, Mickey Dowd, I mean, we all know him. He's very low key, he probably wouldn't want me to say anything, but he's an amazing guy.
Incredible human.
Incredible human.
Legitimately just wrote down him and Nate's name to make sure that we talked about him.
Oh yeah.
As you
and
said
I'll talk
his
about
name.
it too. Yeah. That's a whole nother thing. We have time?
We can dive into it, or
Okay.
we can do another episode where we dive deep. I don't care. You
I'll
tell
just
me.
mention him real quick.
Yeah.
So with
I definitely want to talk about them and give them
Yeah.
the praise that they
course,
deserve.
of
Because
course.
as humans,
incredible.
incredible. Human. And their talent and skill set.
Unreal.
Come on.
And so with the gym, Laurence and I had this vision. It was like, hey, we want women to be able to come in and feel safe to train. That's a big thing.
It's huge.
And because we don't need any students, we only want students there that fit our vibe. And the vibe is you come in clean, you're respectful, you're kind, you're not creepy, no injuries. You know, we literally are putting an injury board in our gym, and it's going to stay clean because the way we run things. I mean, if you're a white belt and you come into the gym and you have no experience, you're not going to train for a while. You're going to learn how to fall. You're going to learn how to move. You know, we see a lot of this in jiu-jitsu gyms. You're a brand new white belt. Oh, you wrestled in high school? This guy, he's a dad that's in his 50s. And he was a lacrosse player in college. Okay, you guys go kill each other. I want to see this. Like, I've seen that so many times. People get their teeth knocked out, or they hurt their wrist. Or, I mean, these are, you know, people are a little bit older and things like that. But if you could teach them up and teach them how to train and maintain injury-free, you know, we're going to have, Lauren's wife is a yoga instructor. She's going to be coming in and running stretching classes and yoga classes. So we want to create like our ethos and the vibe of the gym we want to create is just something really special, and something we call it the Grappling Institute because we want it to be high level. And that's our thing, high level. The wrestling coach is going to be coming in. It's really hard to find adult wrestling classes in Dallas. Andy Rovat, 3-time All-American from Michigan, wrestled in the Olympics. What other wrestler in closest area can say that? I don't even know any. I mean, maybe Kendall Cross. I don't know if he's still in the area, but there's very few guys. You know, Andy also coached the men's U.S. wrestling team for the Olympics. So he's coached at a high level. He's coached the women's team for the Olympics. You know, he's coached at the Olympic level. He has competed at the Olympic level, you know, and he's won a lot of, he's U.S. Open champion, you know, so he's super squared away. I texted him the other day, hey, will you come in at least one time a week? He said, yeah, just let me know the time. So we're going to figure out with our students and stuff and kind of find an ideal time. I'm also going to bring in, as he's in town, to be determined, I don't want to, you know, say it too much, but one of my buddies, he's Japanese and he was Japan's top heavyweight for the last 10 years, an Olympic silver medalist and adult IJF, International Jiu-Jitsu Federation world champion. Wow. He's going to be coming in. Our goal is, you know, I talked to him about it a little bit. You know, I don't have a confirmation on that, so I don't know quite yet, but our goal is to bring him in for at least one time a week to teach a class. So we're trying to create this, like, this ecosystem of like really high level grapplers, really high level humans. You know, I mean, half of our clientele right now, they've done the pre-sense is doctors, lawyers, you know, entrepreneurs, guys that in that sphere. You don't have to be in that sphere to train with us, but that's the environment we're trying to build. People that are successful on and off the mats. And we want to help you too, right? Like we want to help you be successful on the mats. And by being around those people, you should be successful off the mats.
So as you were going into this business venture, how important was it for you in regards to having skin in the game?
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, like you had skin in the game in regards to not only just sweat equity, but you had a financial commitment as well. And you know, your business partner had a financial commitment.
For sure.
How does that change the business mindset for you?
I mean, honestly, it really doesn't. Like anything I attack, I'm going to go out 100%.
Okay.
And I made sure going into it that I never wanted to be in a position where I felt like I was drowning. Okay. You know, and a lot of people, I feel like when they open businesses, it's kind of like, if this doesn't work, you know, I've burned my ships. Laurence and I aren't really in that position, and that's a really unique position to be in as a business owner. We're fine.
Yeah.
The gym is fine.
Yeah.
That's why, like, the gym's been open for about a week now. We haven't even taken a payment yet because we want to get the contract exactly right, and we want to make it an open contract. People can leave at any time because we don't want to ever keep anybody. You know, I hate to, you know, some people will talk to me and be like, oh, you know, what's your gym cancellation policy? Oh, it's 6 months or so. I'm like, how? If you don't want to be there, I don't want you there.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a big thing for us. So we've been trying to get things just right. But
so to elaborate deeper on what I said, skin in the game is, you know, I was talking with a business leader like last week, and I was doing coaching with him, and one of his big things is never go into business with someone that doesn't have skin in the game. Like sweat equity is not enough. Like they actually have to have something to lose. There has to be some skin
no, for sure.
in the
There's
game.
definitely been a lot of financial investment.
Yeah. And so how did that change your mindset? Because this is your first big
endeavor. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, one thing I say
how
is
do you carry that burden?
I think I carry it well. Like one of the big things is my friendship with Laurence.
Okay.
And I talked to him beforehand. I said, hey man, he's a man of faith as well. And I said, hey, if this is ever at a spot where it's the business or our friendship, I'm walking.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be your friend. And I said, how are you on that? And we talked about this before, and he was like, I'm 100% there. And so, yeah, sure, we've dumped a bunch of money into the gym, but the success of it, in my mind, is more of when, not if.
Nice.
Just because I have such confidence in my skill and Laurent's skill and the network that we have in the community and just being good people, you know, and just, like I said, giving it out, you know, the expectation of receiving. But honestly, we wanted this gym. I would do this and almost like, honestly, Laurent and I talked about this. We would almost front the whole cost for the gym to have this.
Just to have it.
Just to have it. How cool it is, how awesome it is, the feel. I mean, when I walk in, I use my card and I scan in. I'm like, man, this is mine.
That's yours.
You know, and that feels special. It's the first time I've really had that feeling. And I would pay that money right now just to have that.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's a sense of accomplishment that you earned.
Yes.
You earned it. You earned it. You worked for it. It is something that's undeniable that, you know, God blessed you with,
100%.
and you deserve it. The reason why I asked the skin in the game question, it was prompted, that thought was prompted because of that conversation the other week. But as I'm hearing you talk about your students, it's important that they have skin in the game.
100%.
Like, this is not just, hey, just because you're going to pay us doesn't mean that you get to train here.
Yes.
You have to be a part of our culture,
100%.
a part of our ethos.
Yep.
And culture is the ultimate form of decentralized command.
Yep.
It's the
love
ultimate
that.
form. Like, if people understand the culture, it guides them on what they can do and what they cannot do. And so that's what prompted that whole skin in the game thing. Because as I'm sitting here, I'm like, sorry, you guys have created an environment where, not to be rude, but you also like, hey, we don't need you. We don't, if you don't want to be here, if you're not going to contribute and provide value to the gym, if you're not going to be a good human, we don't care about your money. We don't need your money.
100%.
And that's got to be a very comforting feeling.
It feels great.
That's amazing.
Feels great.
All right, let's go. Mickey and Nate.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit more about those studs.
For sure. So, I haven't even known Nate for a crazy long time. I've known Mickey for about as long as I've known Isaac. So I've known.
No way.
Yeah. So I met Mickey at the Pro Center.
Okay.
We didn't know each other well, and you know, Mickey, you know, he is, you know, his background is really cool. That's his own business. I don't think he'd want me to share a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, he's going to come on the podcast. We're going to dive into
Okay,
it. But
yeah.
let's keep his
His
stuff,
thing is his stuff.
Yeah.
But he was working for the government at the time. I'll say that. Working for the government at the time. Didn't really know. He keeps a lot of his business private. You know, as we've gotten closer, I've learned more stuff about him. But he's a hero.
Yes.
And he is just an awesome guy. I love Mickey. I don't know what I mean. I just love that guy. Biggest example of giving without receiving, you know, just a giver in a lot of ways to the people around him. I think he's picky with who he brings in, but I think once he brings you in, you're his guy. But he would always approach me, you know, at Pro Center back in the day, and he was like, hey, I'm working, I got X amount of time, and then I'm just going to do this, and I want to do this with you. And, you know, I've heard that, you know, and I was kind of like, all right, man, for sure, anytime. And he and I were always close. We kept in touch over the years, but, you know, over the last year and a half, maybe even less, he moved back and it was kind of full time here in the DFW area and started training with me more. And we had the pro training and things kind of moved around. It ended up back at Alliance, but you know, Joe had a son recently. Pedro has a daughter. They're all running academies now. Joe's opening up satellite locations. You know, there's so much that's going on. I don't really have a full-time coach. It's hit me up every day, giving me, you know, outside of Laurent. And Laurent and I, again, he definitely keeps me accountable on all those things, but he's got 3 daughters, full-time job, now running the gym. He was teaching full-time at Fortis. Now he's teaching full-time at the Grappling Institute, the GI. So it's kind of cool. It's GI, right? It's the abbreviations.
I love that.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. But Mickey came up to me. He's like, hey man, I think I can help you. You know, we started talking and he kept telling me about this guy named Nate.
Nightmare Nate.
Yeah, Nasty Nate. And
Nasty Nate.
Yeah, Nasty Nate. And you know, I always hear that people are good. You know, you never know. And you know, Nate and I started training a little bit together, and he's pretty scary, man. I think he's 54.
Yeah, I think so.
And that dude's wrists are like the size, I mean, twice the size.
Sounds like a drive shaft.
Yeah, like a drive shaft.
Yeah.
You know, and he's had, I mean, he would be a great, you know, guest.
I've been working that, and I cannot wait for that day.
Yeah. And he's had, you know, his own story. He's very successful in his life, but, you know, pretty bootstraps. You know, he made it happen himself, built a business, did that whole thing. I mean, he's one of the few guys that I've seen where I'm like, I think he works harder than I do.
Yeah.
You know, that's really motivating to see. You know, he would tell me, oh man, you know, I'd get up and I'd roof from 5 a.m. to, you know, 7 or 8 p.m. Then I'd go train for a couple hours and, you know, maybe run like 6 or 7 miles. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah. And then I started having to get up at 2 a.m. to get my runs in, man, because I was too tired at night. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, and that's just who he is, man. I mean, he's just such a hard worker.
Wasn't he one of Cain Velasquez's main training partners?
I think for a while, yeah. For a while.
That's unreal.
He beat,
That's unreal.
He beat Mark Kerr in college. I know. I think Mark Kerr. He was UFC at that point. Is Mark Kerr in the UFC?
Yeah.
I think he beat Mark Kerr. Don't quote me on this. He had some good matches with Dean Listerback. He won Grappler's Quest a bunch of times. Like unknown. Like he wrestled D2 in college. I think he was an All-American as a D2. But this dude's hands are so heavy, and we started training together. And he would talk to me a little bit. And again, I think as you get older and things like this, you're just very careful who you bring in.
Yes.
Because I never know anybody's, like, for instance, my one of my mentors, Adam, he approached me at a Weedify gala and just started chatting me up. I was like, hey man, I would love to connect with you, maybe plug you into my network. And I was like, who's this guy?
Yeah.
But then as we started talking, I'm like, oh, this guy's an amazing guy. I definitely want this guy in my life. And then he and I have been like best friends for years now. But kind of the same thing with Nate. I didn't know who he was. I didn't get any weird vibes from him or anything. I just didn't know who he was. As I started asking around a little bit and seeing what he does, I was like, oh, this guy's really incredible. And he came up to me a few months ago and was like, hey, Steffen, do you need any help? And just a little back history, like after Joao competed at the Craig Jones Invitational, I took over the pro training. So it's kind of cool for being in a blue belt role to being, having the keys and to now I'm running it. So every day I'd come in, kind of play like the John Danaher role, have my sheet with, the drills and the rounds that we're going to do and all that. But it is hard being a full-time athlete and a full-time coach in the same time.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to run training and I'm trying to get my rounds in. And Nate came up to me, he's like, hey, can I help you? And nobody really asked me that in this way surrounding this part of my life. And I was like, well, yeah, like, would you be interested in coming in? I said, let me check with the guys, but would you be interested in coming in Tuesdays and Thursdays to help me? He's like, yeah, whatever you need. And I said, where do you live? He's like, don't worry about it. I said, where's the training
He's
at?
such a good human, man.
He's like, where's the training at? I said, oh, well, it's in like the Irving area. He's like, that's fine. He's like, what's the address? He's like, what time? He's like, oh, we're meeting there like 7 a.m. He's like, okay, I'll get there at like 6:30. Meet you there at 6:30. I was like, sure. And so I talked to Pedro about it and he comes in, it was awesome. And I said, hey, can you come? I said, well, I see you tomorrow. He's like, oh, I thought you said Tuesday and Thursday. I was like, well, can you come Monday through Friday? He's like, yeah, I can come Monday through Friday. He's like, what time do you want me here? And then he's like, oh, you guys are missing an assault bike. So we bought us an assault bike. And you guys need some free weights, bought us some free weights. I mean, just like, and it's not even anything he buys, it's nothing about that. It's just his investment of time into us.
His intentionality
has been so profound. Yeah. Such an awesome guy, man. And he's really like, again, like, I see him very similar to my dad in the way he supports me, and even though I haven't known him for a long time, just such a cool guy, man. He'll check in on me, text me, like I really feel now that I have like a true coach in a lot of ways. Like, not that Joao isn't that, because I love Joao, but like Joao has so much that's going on in his life.
There's been a shift of priorities in Joao's life, and you being a good friend and student understand that. And
exactly.
You aren't taking it personal. Like, you're like, oh, cool. Guess what? You're still my coach.
Yeah.
But I have these other coaches that can dedicate
way more time.
And Mickey and Nate, their game is unreal. And their intentionality is
profound, man.
Profound is the word.
Profound is the word. And I talked to you. I even talked to Joe about it. I said, hey, these guys are going to kind of be, helping me a little bit. And man, I mean, he understands it. He has a 3-month-old son or 4-month-old. Hey, Joe, fly out with me to California. I can't ask him that right now, and I wouldn't. Just out of respect, I wouldn't. But I talked to Nate, and I said, hey, man, I want to compete a lot this year. That's my goal. I just finished competing a couple days ago.
Yeah. Where was that at?
That was in Northern California.
For what?
The ADCC San Jose Open.
How'd they go?
All submissions.
My man.
Yeah, all submissions. All submissions. The 100 plus kilo bracket. 2 matches, 2 quick subs. So it was good, man. I was going to do the open division too, which I would have won very easily. Just to be honest, just looked at who was there. But some of those ADCC Opens, they ran my bracket and the open bracket 10 hours apart. And flights to catch and airports to be at, I was like, I can't stay here till 10, 11 p.m. at night. But if I'd said, I would have won the open. But I asked Nate, I said, hey, I want to compete a lot this year. My plan is to go to Europe. I want to go to Japan. What is he's like, oh, just let me know the dates. I'm like, what do you mean? And Mickey chimed in, he's like, yeah, I'm coming too. And I got to give a shout out too. There's this guy that we both know that Mickey introduced me to, named Alex Gordy, and he does all the media stuff for the Patriot Point show, which is my thing with Randy, and he's in it now too. He's kind of one of the hosts as well now, but he is such an awesome guy, man. Biggest example I've seen of giving without the expectation of receiving. I look and I think, like Randy always tells me, good people find each other. Yeah. He was a former roommate of Mickey's and stuff, former Air Force. He was air traffic controller for a while, and he's 100% disability retired now from there's a show about him out there that we did with him. But amazing guy. He's also like, oh, I'm coming too. I'm in this unique position now where I have 3 of my really good friends that are willing to travel with me anywhere in the world to come support me. And then now Mickey's competing more because that's like his thing, you know, but he also wants to coach us more than anything. And so he's kind of in a role where he's like, hey, the times I can compete, I'll compete. The times I just need to coach you, I'll coach you.
Yeah.
Like this past week, he had some personal stuff going on, so he wasn't able to compete. He had to make a quick flight home, but he coached me, you know, and he's talking to me and you know, I had some health stuff early in the month. He's still hearing my voice a little bit. So I wasn't even sure I was going to compete. He's like, no, you're going to compete. And so it's good having those guys around me. But yeah, Mickey and Nate, man, and Gordy, but specifically Mickey and Nate in the coach's role has just been profoundly, I feel like everything is it's just the perfect storm now. I feel like I'm on the launching pad just to do great things competing wise, because I haven't been competing as much the last like, you know, year and a half, but you know, I need to get a job after college. I need to graduate and kind of get all that stuff squared away. And now that it is, I'm just like found the right coaches.
Dude, you're on the path.
I'm on the path, man. I'm chopping wood, carrying water, right? And
That's
so,
amazing.
Yeah.
And you know what's even cooler about those guys is they are mighty men of God.
Yes.
They love the Lord, and they're going to be there to support you for all those aspects of your life.
100%.
Which is critical.
100%. I texted Nate today. I was like, hey, you back in town? Because he's in California doing some business stuff. He's like, yeah, I'll be back tomorrow. I think he's flying in like in the morning or something. He's going to come coach. Like, he's just a stud. And I love this relationship that I have with Coach Nate and making stuff, because I'm always every day I tell him thank you. Because, man, I can't believe this. What I do to deserve. And every day they tell me thank you.
Yeah.
You know, because Nate's like, oh man, you know, for years I woke up at 4 a.m. or 3:30 or 5 or whatever in the morning to go work and train. He's like, but now that I'm basically retired, you know, he's done the entrepreneurial thing. He's like, I'm waking up at 8 or 9. He's like, I kind of feel lazy. I don't have as much to do. He's like, but coaching you guys has given him a lot of purpose from what he's told me. Same with Mickey. You know, Mickey's like, hey, I'm able to get out of bed. I have motivation to get out of bed every morning. And I think he's found a lot of purpose. And I don't want to speak for Mickey, but that's kind of what he's communicated to me in coming to coach us. And, you know, the main guys are just Joao, it's Pedro, it's me, you know, and Mickey's been such a glue for kind of holding everybody together. I mean, even personally, Mickey's helped me with a lot of, you know, just advice I'll call him on. And he's such a sharp guy. And he's very emotionally sharp too. And so he can kind of, you know, help me out with just, you know, whatever. And I think it's really important to have that personal connection with coaches too, because like the personal stuff is going to definitely play in to the competing journey, right? Like, you know, my girlfriend breaks up with me 6 days before I compete at the World Championships. Maybe that's in my mind, you know, and at the time I didn't really have anybody to talk to it about that stuff outside of, hey, just get it together. Yeah. Right. But having these coaches and like Mickey and Nate, I mean, it's awesome. It's a big blessing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think we're at a good point, man. This has been an incredible episode.
Thanks, JP.
Thank you so much.
Both you guys,
Lucas, any final questions for him before we close it out?
Yeah, so I've heard this rumor, and I need to know whether or not it's true, that you were the most, were the most decorated brown belt of all time. Is that correct?
Yeah, to my estimations, I think that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, my sister actually found that out. Shout out to Lily. I love my sister. She
thanks, Lily.
Yeah, thanks, Lily. She hit me up after I won Nogi Worlds. She was like, "Hey, dude, I think you have won the most out of any brown belt." And I didn't really think about it, but I started going back and I'm like, well, I did this and nobody's done that. I mean, there's a couple of guys that went undefeated for maybe longer. Like I know Keenan had more matches, but he lost at Europeans. I won. Victor Hugo lost Nogi Worlds, the open division. I won the open division Nogi Worlds, but Victor Hugo won the open division in the gi. And I had an injury at Worlds when I won in the gi, and I wasn't able to. So there's some, you know, you could flip flop, but pure like titles wise, yes, I believe so. That second year undefeated, you know, not many people have done that. But there's only like 2 or 3 people that I think could be up there with me, and they're all big names, which is I feel really fortunate to be included in. So like Felipe Pena did something similar, Joao did something similar, Keenan Cornelius did something similar, and Victor Hugo did something similar. So those are the only guys that I've been able to really find online through doing research that have, you know, because I won Pan Am's gi, Pan Am's no gi. I won the open division. I won the open division at Europeans, and I won my division at Europeans. Won my open division at Nogi Worlds, won my division at Nogi Worlds, won gi Worlds, won Grand Slam, which is another tournament, went undefeated in all super fights, and won like 10 opens, all within like 6 months. You know, that last like little sprint.
That's crazy, man.
So, you know, but it was awesome, man. I mean, I was very blessed to be able to, I burned through a bunch of my savings. I remember because I didn't even have very many sponsors at the time. I remember thinking, man, is it better to be broke or to have like, you know, a little bit of money? Or is it better to go try to win this title in Europe? I said, I think I'm going to go to Europe.
Yeah.
You know, and so I wanted to chase my dreams and do that whole thing. And, you know,
you're young and single. Why not?
Exactly. Yeah. And so my dad was able to help me out a little bit too. And, you know, this is before, you know, my work and things like that. Yeah. But now it's nice too that, you know, again, I would give kind of a shout to a lot of jiu-jitsu guys, get a job. You know, that's a big thing. Like have your passion in jiu-jitsu. But I graduated SMU, not to pat myself too much in the back, but I graduated from SMU on the honor roll. I was top 5% of my class. You know, I graduated like a 3.95 GPA or something. You know, I graduated with really good grades from SMU and one of the harder programs there. And I did it. I won 3 world titles while in college, and I won them in different parts. You know, I won PANS 3 times in college. I won Grand Slam a couple times in college, which is the Abu Dhabi Jiu-Jitsu Federation. You know, I mean, I would leave. I was going part-time like the last year and a half. That's why it took me so long to graduate. But I would leave, travel and compete, and then come back and go to class.
Yeah.
Like the next day. Like
No excuses.
No excuses. And then I would be speaking in front of class. I think I told you this before the show started, and I was like, I'd be kind of nervous. I'm like, well, I just won Worlds like 3 days ago.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm kind of, you know, making history in my sport. Like, why wouldn't I just not care? You know, and I kind of went out there with that. And so that gave me a lot of confidence, but you can do both, you know? And when I graduated college, Joao was always telling me, he's like, hey, you need to focus 100% on jiu-jitsu when you get out. This needs to be your sole focus. That's the only way I think that you're going to be like an ADCC champ or a black belt world champ. Mm-hmm. And I kind of told him, I was like, okay, I'm going to try it. You know, like he and I are different people, right? I was like, I'm going to try it. So when I got out for about 3 months, all I did was jiu-jitsu. 100% focus. And that was like May, June, July of last year. Mm-hmm. And I would come home and I was like, I would rest and I would watch a little TV and I'd look on the thing, do some tape study. I'm like, man, it's 2 p.m. I'm watching TV. It's like, I've never done this before. And I just didn't feel good about it. And so now that I got a job, thankfully my job's remote and, you know, I'm able to kind of, you know, do that whole thing in the working hours, but I'm still lifting. I'm still training twice a day. You know, I mean, you're going to have to sacrifice some social stuff, some fun, right? But it's like, I always hear that saying, it's better to be an under-fun 20-year-old, you know, versus an under-skilled 30-year-old.
100%. 100%.
Right? And that's the whole thing, right? Like you can either have fun in your 20s, you know, and then be an underskilled 30-year-old, or you can work really hard and put your head down and you're going to be an under-fun 30-year-old, but an overskilled 30-year-old, right? And so I would rather like being 25 now, you know, and then like thankfully, like also going to SMU, I got exposure to a lot of wealthy people, you know, and a lot of network in that. And I've, you know, kind of saw what it could look like if I was successful in that way.
Yeah.
You know, like going out and with my buddies and they're like, oh, hey, let's drop 20 grand on a table tonight. You know, like that's happened a few times. It's not my money. I'm like, hey, I got to leave. I'm like, no, it's fine. Like, man, I remember one of my buddies, I'll give a shout out to him. He knows, he's a G. He'll know who I'm talking about. But the first night I went out with him, there was like an hour line at this bar in Dallas. He's like, I'm not waiting in this line. So let's walk up to the front. He's like, how much is the table? They're like, 25 grand. He's like, okay. Puts his card down. We go and he's like, let's get this. I'm like, dude, I can't afford this. He's like, oh no, dude, it's good. Don't worry about it. And I talked to Andy.
You're like getting nervous. You're like, bro, I can't split this with you.
I can't even split this at all. And then, but I mean, I've seen some of these guys, man. I mean, but the thing is, again, if you're a good human, you treat them with kindness, you don't care about their money, and you're just friends with them. Like, I'm only friends with this guy because I legitimately want to be friends with him. I talked to him on the phone today. He lives overseas now. He lives back in Switzerland. But like, I talked to him today and I was like, we just chatted, talked about some business stuff we want to do together, like whatever. But I was never friends with him. I didn't even know he had money. Became really close with him. And then it was like, boom, 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 boom. And that's a few of my friends from SMU. So I kind of saw what that would look like. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll go out with them when they go out, right? And I'll do that whole thing. But I don't want to be doing this off the backs of other people ever, you know? And also I want to be that guy eventually. And obviously like if you own a gym or if you're a high level competitor, like Gordon Ryan's made a lot of money, but he's kind of an outlier. Like you see, I know a lot of guys that are world-class that can barely afford their next car payment or are worried about their rent. We know these guys, you know, and a lot of them unfortunately are Brazilians because they come here, they're poor and they get the opportunities, which I love, you know. And like I just signed one of my buddies, Pedro students, I just signed a visa thing for him, backing him up saying he's needed here, you know, which he is, Mateus, you know, awesome guy. I love Mateus. He sent me that, signed that. So like, I love these guys being here. I support them. And they're doing what they can, but they are working, you know, and a lot of these guys, especially American guys I see, they just want to be full-time grapplers. And I'm like,
that's crazy. You
can't provide for your family. Like I'll eventually want to have kids and do that whole thing and have a wife and all this. And I don't want to be worried about, you know, where their next meal is coming from. And another thing too, is like, you can be excellent in both. Like I do really well at my job, but I'm like, that was the craziest thing to me too. When I would go compete at brown belt or whatever, I would see these Brazilians or Europeans or Americans and I do a little social media research on them, do a little tape study. That's all they do. Part-time instructor at the gym. They work at like a coffee shop. So I'm gonna check their story on Instagram. You know, I was doing a full class load at the last like couple semesters. You know, I went part-time and then I was, you know, taking like 12 hours or whatever. And I was working, you know, in commercial real estate and I was competing and I was beating all these guys, you know, and I would go into the tournament, I would win. And then I'd be like, oh, I got to fly back for class. They were like, you're in school? I'm like, yeah. And I'm not at like community college either. I'm at a pretty tough school and doing tough classes and everything else. And you can do it. It's not that hard. And a lot of people do it. Like not necessarily in jiu-jitsu, but there's guys like Nate, guys like Mickey, guys like you, Randy, you know, like people that just do hard things and then just do them.
It's a choice through the mindset that you instill into your life.
Yes. Like this.
It's a mindset shift.
Exactly. Like motivation is so temporary, right? Like you always say that, but like discipline you just have to say, like, for me, like if I set my alarm to go to training, I mean, there's so many times in college where I would study all night and then just go train. Go to classes and come home, take a 2-hour nap and go back to train. Like that was my life for a while. It's not maybe the healthiest, but like I could do it. So I did it. But that just like, I was just going to do it. Like if the alarm goes off, I'm going to get up and get in my car. Doesn't matter how much I don't want to. I mean, there's so many times I drive to training. I'm like, oh, I do not want to be here. I mean, even recently, you know, like I'll wake up and it's like 5:30. Maybe I shut my eyes at 1 a.m. because I was working. And I'm like, oof, 3.5 hours sleep for it. Okay. All right, let's go train.
Yeah.
Right. So I think you just have to have that kind of mindset. But again, that's people that you surround yourself with. Because if I wasn't around Mickey or Nate or any, Pedro, I'd probably be like, I'll sleep. Right. And so I think it is really important too to have those good examples around you.
Yeah, I agree.
Last one I've got. So you said you're business econ guy.
Yeah.
When are you gonna have the Stephen Levitt and Stephen Dubner? When are you gonna have them do the Freakonomics study on Steffen Banta? Are you familiar with their stuff?
Yeah, I've heard the book. Yeah. I don't know, man. I think I got to be a little more impressive for that. We'll see.
I don't know, dude. I'll reach out.
Okay, yeah, for sure. That'd be cool.
That would be super cool to see how the BJJ versus the sumo world work together.
I remember. I remember that in the book with all the corruption and all that. I remember that. Yeah. No, and I think another thing too is like I'm trying to get myself out there a little bit more too. With the podcast and everything else. And I'm not a super public guy, and I think I'm trying to now, like even with competing, I'm trying to be a little bit more open and to all that, just because like with Randy's a very private guy. Like I gotta pull him out to get on the show kind of, but he understands, like we're trying to promote the business, we're trying to promote American Working Combatives or my gym, the Grappling Institute, or what you're doing, you know what I mean? Like your show and Formiga's gym or whatever it is, you kind of have to put yourself out there as, hey, this is me.
Yes, sir.
This is what I do. And that's been something I'm getting used to, but I think it's a learned skill.
Yeah. Right? What are you reading any books right now?
I just read Atomic Habits.
Okay.
Just finished that one, which I like.
So good. Yeah.
Which I like, There's another one that Randy recommended to me. I believe it's called Gates of Fire.
Oh, yeah.
It's the Spartan book. He said this kind of a SEAL.
When you're a new guy in the SEAL teams, it's like, hey, read this.
Yeah. And so he gave me that. And so I've been listening to that I don't have a bunch of time to read, but I like listening to the audiobooks and stuff. Nice. And I listen to a lot of podcasts. But now I'm kind of just trying to do the suggestion thing. Randy's giving me about 5 books I'm trying to work through right now. Nice. But that's been another big thing too. And another way I've really figured out you can connect with people is saying like, hey man, do you have any book suggestions? Can you give me any books to, kind of, and then it's such a talking point. Cause for me, if I finish a great book and it leaves a really lasting impression on me, if I'm then talking to you and we can connect on that, it's like,
I've got a few I'll send over to you.
Yeah, please. I love that.
That's awesome. Well, man, dude, thank you for the time.
Thank you so much.
We're going to close it out with some, talk about some final things, but I'm going to have you close it out with the final thoughts. So just kind of thinking about that as we run through a few things. Man, thank you for all of our listeners. We appreciate you guys listening. I just want to thank you guys for the support each of you have given us by listening, sharing, subscribing, commenting. Make sure you're subscribed to us on YouTube so you can be notified when our YouTube exclusive episodes come out. If you want to follow us on social media, I am at JP Dinnell. That's JPDINNELL. Lucas is at Lucas Pinkard. That's LUCASPINCKARD. And Steffen is at Steffen Banta. That's STEFFENBANTA. And then make sure you're also following at the Grappling Institute. So you can be following, if you go to Steffen's page, the Grappling Institute is also tagged at the top of his Instagram page. Make sure you're following him, give him some support. Also, if you're a company or an individual that has the ability to sponsor athletes, you should definitely give Steffen a message.
Thank you.
Send him a message, see what you can do to support him. And obviously, it'll be beneficial to your company. Make sure you're following us at Echelon Front on social media. It's at Echelon Front. Our website is echelonfront.com. So if you want to learn more about what we do at Echelon Front, go to that website, click on the events, see a future event that we have coming up. You can also shop for some of the merch that we have on our website. If you would like to work with us at Echelon Front, you can also request that through echelonfront.com, or you can always send me a direct message and I will help facilitate that as well. Also, make sure you're checking out Extreme Ownership Academy. Join in on our live sessions once a week. Go through some of the training modules that we have. Look forward to seeing you guys at a future event or for any of our instructors to come work with you guys. Make sure you guys check out Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu. It's a ministry that I'm a part of that Steffen actually was one of the experts that taught at. That was incredible, man. That was an incredible no-gi seminar. But If you want to follow us, it's at Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu _USA. Do that ministry with Isaac, Steven, Josh, Lucas, and a few other guys. Obviously, Brent, Kramer, handful of David and Robin have really been stepping up and just helping grow the ministry. And if I forgot to list your name, I apologize. It's incredible to see what the ministry's been doing. We have a podcast that comes out with an episode every Tuesday, doing different live events about every 4 to 6 weeks. Those events we start off with a free jiu-jitsu seminar. Then somebody shares their testimony, and then we open it up for some open mat, which is always a good day of training. That's when Nate just wrecked my world for the very first time.
It's nasty, man.
Like my neck, you were talking about earlier, I had to hold up my head.
Oh yeah, me too. Mickey created a little device that went around his head and attached to his seat.
Yeah,
because he couldn't hold his head up when they first started training.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah. Also, check out Little Cattle Co.
Get that beef.
Yeah, dog. It's a Texas beef company I'm a part of. We have these beef sticks here. I have a bag of beef sticks for you as a gift.
Awesome, man.
Of the original and jalapeno flavor.
Thank you.
So good.
Those will disappear on the drive back. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Well, that would be impressive because you have 2 in front of you and 10 in that bag.
You might be surprised, man.
This is refrigerate after opening, but like, who's gonna only eat half of it?
I don't know. Maybe a child, but not my kids.
I don't know. Not my kids
are
either.
savages,
Levi, Levi is all about beef right now.
These
man.
beef sticks are incredible, super fresh, no artificial crap, nothing bad in them. So if you go to littlecattle.co, you can check out some of our different products. We have different beef tallow products, body butter, tallow cream, lip balm, beef sticks, what we were just talking about, absolutely incredible. If you want to be a wholesaler, if you want to carry them at your business or at your gym, you can send us an email to amanda@littlecattle.co for the different tallow products and the beef sticks. Also, check out On The Path Printing. We're on Instagram. It's an apparel printing company I'm a part of with Josh Strasburger. Send us a message. Let us know what you need, and we can help with your apparel printing needs. Also, check out Bruiser Arms. It's a company I am a partner of with Leif and Jocko. Different weapons, different classes, different training. When I had Randy on, I was all fired up. I'm like, bro, I can't wait for him to come do some stuff with us at Bruiser Arms. So check it out. Send us a message. Let us know if we can help you out. Also, check out Origin and Jocko Fuel. Just all the support that they've given over the years, and the story of Origin being a 100% American-made company, starting in the jiu-jitsu world. For them to be able to do what they did was just unreal. To bring manufacturing back to America, where you have 100% American-made gis, rash guards, belts. Now they have the 100% American-made hunt line, all their pants, jeans, boots, work pants, work boots, regular boots, wallets, belts, hoodies, hats, T-shirts. I mean, it's just...
The Kilo Light hoodie is on sale right now for $39.
That's stupid.
That's stupid awesome.
That's amazing. So go to originusa.com, check out their gear, give them some support. Also go to jockofuel.com to check out their supplements, get you some of those hydrates, some of that joint warfare. If you're doing jiu-jitsu, you need to be taking that joint warfare.
Yeah.
Creatine.
And creatine.
Yeah.
Can't overstate how important that is just for everyone to be taking.
Yes, absolutely. What closing thoughts do you have for us, my man?
I just want to say thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate the time. I guess my closing thought, this is a little, not really a jiu-jitsu thing, but, I feel like probably the majority of your listeners are men. Would you say? Probably the majority.
Majority, probably. Yeah.
According to the demographics,
yes.
Probably men. The one thing I'd say, and like I said, is always, coming from my dad and stuff, just like the example he set for me. But, if you're like, family man or not, be the catalyst, right? Like be the person in your family that's taking care of things, be squared away, put that responsibility on your shoulders. I think a lot of times, especially as like a younger guy, a lot of the people that are around me, they don't take that responsibility, right? They either still put it on their family or they kind of just say, oh, I'm young. I don't need to be doing those things. But if you can kind of just do the difficult things, you're really going to be in a spot to where, like I said, I always wanted to be admired by my father, and that was always really important to me. And so just seeing how my dad lived, man, I mean, I can't speak enough good things about my dad, but seeing how he lived and seeing that example, and if you don't have that dad example, find a good man in your life, attach yourself to them, see how they live, and then just mimic that and copy that. And eventually you're going to turn into that. I have so many good people in my life now, but it wasn't always like that. A lot of times it was just my dad or whatever, but like I said, take that weight on your shoulders, make it your fault, take the full ownership, right? And kind of live in that way. And, when something goes bad, I always have it in my mind. I have this kind of mantra, it's my fault. When relationships go bad, it's my fault. If my training goes bad, it's my fault. If I lose in a tournament, it's my fault. If things aren't going bad, it's my fault. If I'm, haven't been in my faith as much, it's my fault. Everything is my fault. And when it's my fault, it's very easy to solve because it's on me.
Yes.
Right. When I take it off onto other external things, oh, it's, I'm sick because of the weather. Oh no, I'm sick because I didn't get enough sleep. That's my fault. You can always find a reason where you can be getting better. I think a lot of people, they put it off onto society, politics, whatever it may be, right? We live in a society, in my opinion, where a lot of men aren't really strong men anymore. Right. And so if we can, if there, I think a lot of people are changing, and I definitely surround myself with strong men, but be a strong man.
Yeah. I love it, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you
for your time.
Thank you.
Time is
Appreciate
our
you,
most valuable asset that
Yes,
we
sir.
have. And you spent a lot of time driving here, sitting, talking with us beforehand.
I appreciate
and
it, man.
doing
It's a
this
blessing for me.
episode. And I know that this episode is going to provide just unreal value to our listeners. So I appreciate it. So I hope this episode for all of you has been a reminder to go out there, to do the work that's needed, to put in the effort, to build your legacy, and to never settle. This has been the JP Dinnell Podcast, episode 79.